Hi guys, welcome back to another exciting video, so sit back, relax, and let's get started. Not all men are created equal. It makes sense, considering a world where 80% of humanity has superpowers is the general norm. In this world, superheroes and supervillains, once something only seen in comics, were now as real as can be, with epic battles of good and evil commencing on the streets almost every day. In a world like this, many people aspire to be heroes with their quirks. However, there are those who have quirks that just aren't suited for the task and those who don't even have quirks at all. Izuku Midoriya fell into the latter category. It had been a terrible day for the poor boy to learn he was part of the unlucky 20%. His mother Inko, bless her heart, did her best to support him, especially with the recent death of his father, Hisashi. However, in a world of superpowers, those without were often mocked and ridiculed by those that did. The poor young lad was sitting by himself at lunch that day. While his mom had packed him a bento with his favorite food, katsudon, he had decided to get something from the cafeteria, finding a rather pretty-looking fruit that was all the colors of the rainbow and had spirals on it. Lunch was a quiet affair, but when Izuku bit into the fruit, he gagged. It tasted rancid, like cardboard covered in raw sewage, quickly drowning out the taste with milk. Izuku went through the rest of the day as normal, trying his best to ignore the teasing words from his peers and be picked up by his mom. Little Izuku had no idea how much his life was going to change. When he went to sleep that night, Izuku started having weird visions. In them, he saw men and women harnessing powers that could rival even the strongest quirks, such as manipulating the elements, turning into fantastic beasts, and even shattering the air with their fists. After waking up, Izuku hurried over to his computer to look up the people he saw in his dreams. However, no matter where he searched, it all came up empty. Despite not finding anything explaining his weird dreams, Izuku couldn't help but feel excited for some reason. Little did he realize just how meaningful those dreams were. Stop it, Kachin. You're being mean. Izuku was bravely standing in the defense of another boy as he faced his former childhood friend turned bully, Katsuki Bakugo. Boy, the quirkless wonder thinks he can be a hero. Katsuki scoffed, backed up by two other boys, one who could extend his fingers and one with red bat-like wings. I won't let you hurt him, Kachin. Bullying people is not what heroes do. You're acting like a villain. Izuku snapped back. Unfortunately, those words only led to infuriate Katsuki, who lunged forward with his palms sparking with small explosions. Deku. Izuku closed his eyes and crossed his arms, expecting pain to hit him only for nothing to happen. Slowly peeking one eye open, he saw something that amazed him. A tall rectangular clear barrier had manifested, seemingly out of nowhere, and absorbed Katsuki's explosion and redirected the shockwave back at the blonde, launching him back and knocking him unconscious. Whoa, that's so cool, the boy he was protecting said in amazement. Did I just get my quirk? Izuku thought, continuing to stare in wonder at what he had created. Elsewhere, an old man was out grocery shopping when he felt something in the air and smirked, his interest having peaked as he had not sensed something like in years. Inko was nervously waiting for the doctors to finish checking up on Izuku. She and her best friend Mitsuki, Katsuki's mother, had been talking at the park when they heard a cry for help. They saw Izuku defending another boy and Katsuki unconscious on the ground, as well as some kind of barrier wall in front of Izuku. When questioned, Katsuki's cronies tried pinning the whole thing on Izuku, but just one critical look from Mitsuki and they caved in, confessing to everything. Inko tried to apologize for what happened, but Mitsuki laughed it off, assuring her friend there was no harm done, and dragged Katsuki off to give him a suitable punishment. After 2 whole hours, the doctor soon came out and Inko quickly stood up. How is he, doctor? Did you find out what his quirk was? Here's the thing, Mrs. Midoriya. I don't think this is a quirk, the doctor said honestly. Inko was confused as the doctor led her into the room Izuku was in. The boy quickly hugged his mother as she turned to the doctor. Doctor, what do you mean? I thought he had some kind of barrier quirk. Believe me, so did we. But from the tests we took, your son has no quirk factor ... but something else entirely. Something bizarre. I don't understand. How bizarre are we talking about? Inko asked, worriedly hugging Izuku closer. It means the brat has the spirit of the devil inside him. Inko and the doctor turned and their jaws dropped at who they saw. He was an old man, yet a tall and muscular body with tanned skin. He had round glasses, a scar over his right eye, and facial hair arranged and battled across his lower jaw. This was Silver's the Dark King Rayleigh, the former number 2 pro hero of Japan and the former sidekick to the former number 1 pro hero, Gall D. Roger. Mr. Rayleigh, it's an honor to see you visit us, the doctor humbly said, bowing. What brings you here? That boy doesn't have a quirk, yes, but something different, Rayleigh questioned rhetorically as he squatted down to Izuku's eye level. Tell me, Sonny, did you happen to eat a strange fruit? Izuku nodded. Yeah, it tasted gross, but it looked really pretty, though. Rayleigh chuckled and ruffled the boy's head. That there was the fruit of the devil, a fruit said to hold all the powers of a whole other world. A whole other world. Inko questioned as Rayleigh stood up to address her. To make a long story short, your son has all the powers of every warrior who ever used a devil fruit in that world. Also, if I'm correct, he has a basic understanding of how each and every power works. Izuku closed his eyes and realized Rayleigh was right. He could recall an encyclopedia's worth of powers in his brain and how to use every single one. But how did you know about what happened to the boy? The doctor asked curiously. Rayleigh smirked. You see, my quirk is, I can sense the potential of any individual and how to bring it out. I sensed little Izuku's potential exploding outward and went to investigate. I theorized the reason was that he had found the fruit of the devil, and when I overheard you talking, my hunch was proven. That would explain the results we got from the tests, the doctor realized as he took out a tablet and showed it to Inko, whose eyes widened at what she saw. The results showed simulations of what Izuku was capable of, ranging from manipulating poison to transforming into a giant gold Buddha to creating a dome of spatial energy that allowed him to manipulate anything within it, like performing surgery. Rayleigh smirked as he also saw the simulations and put a hand on Izuku's shoulder. My boy, how would you like to become my apprentice? Something tells me you'll need someone to show you the ropes on these things. Izuku's eyes sparkled with excitement. He could get the chance to train with an actual pro hero. Turning to his mom, Izuku's eyes were just begging her to let him accept Rayleigh's offer. Inko was rather unsure of all this but saw the sincerity in Rayleigh's eyes and just how happy her little boy was. Finally, she relented and nodded her head. An excellent decision, Mrs. Midoriya. Rayleigh sighed as he turned to Izuku. Now kiddo, I'm not gonna gloss anything over. This training I'm gonna put you through will be hell on earth. Are you willing to push through to reach your dreams? Rayleigh saw the determination flash in Izuku's eyes and the furrow of his brow and knew right then and there that this kid definitely had what it took. Yes, I will, Rayleigh-sensei. I'll never stop reaching for my dreams. And on that day, for better or for worse, the world would change. It has been 10 years since Izuku Midoriya ate the fruit of the devil and was taken in as Silver's Rayleigh's apprentice. The old hero was right in that the training would be absolutely hellish, but Izuku persevered through it all, growing stronger each passing day. And now, we begin our story in earnest. Izuku, now currently in his last year of junior high, was walking to school while looking over the notes he had made in his journal, which he usually filled with analysis on various pro-heroes and even villains. Hey, Izuku. Izuku perked up and turned to smile when he saw one of the friends he had managed to make in his 10 years of training, Hilda Yasukani. Hilda was a girl with pale white skin, dark brown hair tied in a ponytail, and wearing a white and pink hat with a pink circle on it. She and Izuku had met a few years ago when Izuku enlisted in one of the dojos that Rayleigh had connections to in order to further his training. Hilda was one of the students at the dojo and the two quickly hit it off together. Hey Hilda, what's up? Nothing much. Are you heading to school? Let's walk together. The two friends began talking about recent events and the latest news about their favorite pro-heroes when they noticed a commotion going on and looked to see a villain with a gigantification quirk rampaging through the city, and already heroes were on the scene. The first one to arrive was Death Arms, who possessed the quirk, which granted him incredible strength and let him catch a falling radio tower the giant villain had knocked over. Helping to keep civilians out of the line of fire was Backdraft, a rescue hero whose quirk could create an endless supply of water from the spigots growing from his hands, and manipulate that water at will. Some of the people noted that the giant villain was just an amateur purse thief who got cornered, and it wasn't long before they found out by whom. Two heroes leaped down, one looking something like a delinquent, and the other looking like he was wearing wood for armor. The former was Metal Bat, and he had the quirk. This granted him an indomitable will and superhuman physical characteristics. The latter was Kamui Woods, with his quirk, a simpler quirk that let him generate and control wood. The duo leaped at the giant villain, who swung his arm to try and swat them away while spouting the usual threats. How thick do you think his skin is at this size? Metal Bat asked. Thick enough that anti-tank rifles would be hard-pressed to pierce it, Kamui Woods suggested. But I have a feeling he'd still feel the pain. All I need to know. Metal Bat smirked as he lunged forward. Bad rush. With great speed, he struck the villain over and over again. The giant barely managed to put up a guard as he winced at the multiple heavy impacts against him. Nice work, Bat. Kamui Woods called out as he ran along the train bridge. Just keep him busy a little longer. After getting into position, Kamui Woods extended his fingers into wooden tendrils that wrapped around the villain's limbs. You're charged with assault, robbery, and illegal use of superpowers. Lacquered chain prison. Metal Bat jumped down to join his partner before noticing something out of the corner of his eye. Looks like we're not the only ones coming. Heads up. Kamui Woods noticed as well and sighed, seeing a large young woman in a skin-tight leotard, a few feet taller than the giant villain, leaping in Kamen Rider style. Cannon. She immediately drop-kicked the giant villain, knocking him off the bridge. Cameramen suddenly appeared in droves, trying to get a picture as the attractive woman was bent over while tying up the perp. Piece of cake for the world's hottest new superhero. "Hello there, everyone, I'm Mount Lady." The new heroine introduced herself with a wink. "You won't have to worry about this bum anymore," as Mount Lady began to shrink to normal size. Hilda noticed Izuku muttering to himself while writing in his notebook, making her chuckle. Same all Izuku. The two friends were third years at Aldera Junior High. "All right, you brats. You're all third years now, so you need to start thinking about your futures," the teacher said before smirking. "But what the heck am I saying? You all want to be heroes, don't ya?" With a flourish, he tossed the papers into the air. Everyone except Izuku, Hilda, and a few others replied excitedly with a shout and showed off their quirks, some subtle and some not so subtle. Okay, settle down," the teacher chided. "I know you're all excited, but first you need to understand the core values of what makes a hero. Midoriya, would you care to give a demonstration? A willingness to do what is right and the ability to use your power in a way that can help people." Izuku answered. The teacher nodded. "Very good. See, most people these days tend to pursue a life of heroics for fame and fortune. Now, I'm not saying one shouldn't seek a comfortable life for themselves, but it's important to remember what truly makes a hero. Oi, teach, don't lump me with these losers." Katsuki Bakugo barked with a derisive laugh, his feet on his desk. "As if any of them are within my league with their shitty quirks." Izuku sighed. Even after all these years, Katsuki's ego and temper had not gone down. Hilda just scoffed and rolled her eyes. Yes, Bakugo, if I remember correctly, you're applying for UA High School, right?" the teacher said as he glanced down at his clipboard. The students began chattering in shock and admiration at this news. That high school. I heard the cutoff score for this year was 79. Their acceptance rates are very low. The cutoff score is always getting higher and higher. Not only is it the top national school, but I heard their entrance examination is so harsh that a lot of applicants were injured. That's why all you chatterboxes are all extras." Katsuki grinned as he leaped onto his desk from his chair in one fluid motion. "I'm the only one who's got what it takes to get into UA. I'll surpass All Might as the top hero and become the best hero in history." Yes, Midoriya is also applying as well," the teacher noted, "as well as Yakusani." Hilda smiled proudly. She didn't have a very strong quirk, just one that kept her in a perfect state of health, but she was trained in martial arts and Izuku had even helped train with her as well. "Diku." Izuku sighed as Katsuki threw himself at him. Explosions at the ready ... and was promptly slammed into the ground by Hilda, knocking him unconscious. "Sheesh, will you ever learn? It's his decision to apply there, not yours." The teacher just sighed, having gotten used to this. At first, he tried to stop it, but eventually gave up and considered it part of daily life. "Thief, somebody stop him." A villain whose quirk allowed him to turn his body into sludge was running from a local store, cash stuffed into his body. Quickly running him was Super Alloy Darkshine, whose quirk gave him superhuman physical characteristics and skin that was both unbreakable and naturally shiny. As the chase occurred, another figure, a blonde-haired skeleton of a man, came out of a convenience store and spotted the chase. "Might want to help him out." He focused, and in a burst of smoke, his body began changing into a more muscular form. "Man, it's like there's no stopping these villains," a guy on the street said as he saw the chase. "Yes, there is," came a booming voice as everyone turned and smiled in delight at who they saw. "Because I am here," Izuku hummed to himself as he put the finishing touches on his 13th analysis journal for heroes. Hilda had gone off to hang out with some of her girl pals, and Izuku figured he could go see Rayleigh and get some early training in. As he passed through a tunnel, he suddenly heard a gurgling sound and turned around to see the sludge villain coming out of a manhole. A medium-sized invisibility cloak to capture. Izuku narrowed his eyes as the sludge villain moved to attack, only to turn into pure electricity with. As soon as the sludge made contact, the villain's whole body was electrocuted, causing him to scream in agony before melting into a barely moving puddle. "Hope nobody gives me a ticket for that. I'm sure self-defense will let him by," Izuku noted before the manhole cover flew off and a large figure jumped out. "Have no fear, for I am here." Izuku's eyes widened to the size of dinner plates. Even without the costume, he recognized the blonde Muslim. Holy crap, All Might. Indeed, the #1 pro hero of Japan and symbol of peace, All Might, was there in the flesh. However, his bombastic entrance faltered slightly when he saw the sludge villain already down for the count. "Oh, what happened here?" Sorry, All Might. He tried to attack me and I used my power to defend myself." Izuku apologized. "No harm done, young man. Using quirks in self-defense is perfectly acceptable." Now Izuku got excited. "Oh man, I can't believe I'm meeting you for real. You're my favorite hero. Can I have your autograph?" All Might laughed with his booming voice and smile while Izuku blushed before giving him his notebook. As the symbol of peace took it, he noticed the title, Future Hero Analysis Vol 13. "Mind if I take a look?" "Yes, of course," babbled Izuku. As All Might flipped through the pages, his eyes widened in amazement at what he saw. Everything was articulately detailed, especially for Mount Lady. Just a few hours after debut, Izuku had already analyzed her quirk, estimation of how tall she grew, how many seconds it took to grow and shrink, and even a small stats chart. My goodness, these notes are very detailed. I shudder to think if a villain managed to get these. And there's 12 more of these. Izuku blushed in embarrassment. Don't worry, All Might. A friend of mine took some precautions to make sure they don't fall into any villainous hands. Finding an empty page, All Might signed the notebook, filling the whole 2 pages himself. He handed it back to Izuku, taking time to memorize the boy's name. He was sure this boy would become a truly worthy hero if he was this dedicated to his studies. Thank you so much for this, Izuku said, bowing in gratitude. All Might gave a thumbs up, taking the time to scoop up the sludge villain into an empty soda bottle before putting it in his pocket. Well, I should get this evildoer over to the proper authorities. You stay out of trouble now. With that, All Might took a giant leap into the sky, quickly disappearing from Izuku's view. Due to the speed as well as his hastiness to leave, he didn't notice the soda bottles slipping out of his pockets. But Izuku sure did. Oh no, he dropped it, quickly running over to catch the bottle. Izuku closed his eyes as he did his best to discern All Might's location using a special spiritual force known as Haki. Haki could be harnessed by all living beings with the right training and came in 3 forms. Thanks to Rayleigh's training, Izuku had managed to unlock all 3 forms of Haki, which he incorporated into his devil fruits to increase their already formidable powers. Soon closing in on All Might's signature, Izuku became confused when he saw how weak he was. Concerned for his hero, Izuku used it to lift off into the air and go in the direction of where All Might went. Damn it, I can't believe I dropped it. All Might cursed internally as he landed on a nearby rooftop when he realized the bottle wasn't on him. I really am getting old if I'm making such a rookie mistake. All Might, you dropped this. Spinning around, the symbol of peace saw Izuku touch down on the rooftop, the bottle containing the sludge villain safely in his hands. A wave of relief washed over the #1 pro hero as he took it gratefully. If you really wanted a day to hang out, you could have just asked. I'm not too busy today. Izuku giggled bashfully. Yeah, sorry about that. I just thought it would be bad if you ended up losing the villain. Suddenly, All Might winced as he clutched at his side, smoke slowly pouring off of him as Izuku's eyes widened in panic. All Might, are you okay? At my limit. Suddenly, in a puff of smoke, Izuku gasped when he saw All Might shrink down into the skeletal man he had been earlier. Sorry about that, he said tiredly, his voice now a much more normal tone. I guess I have some explaining to do, huh? Izuku was freaking out, and to be honest, could you blame him? After all, it's not every day you see your hero deflate into a skeletal shadow of himself. What? How? Why? I have so many questions. Izuku began hyperventilating, his eyes spiraling. All Might could only sigh before walking over and slapping the kid hard across the face to snap him out of it. Thanks, Izuku winced, rubbing his cheek. Don't mention it, All Might said, shaking his head. Suppose I should start with the obvious, huh? What you're seeing is the effect of my quirk. It increases muscle mass and subsequently physical ability. I can hold it for maybe about 6 or 7 hours at a time. It would have been 3 hours per day, but luckily a friend of mine was able to heal a few injuries I got battling a dangerous villain. That's ... that's a lot to take in, Izuku said, still reeling from the shocking revelation. How did an injury like that even happen? All Might sighed as he lifted up his shirt, revealing a crater-like scar stretched across the left side of his torso. Izuku could only cringe at the sight of such a gruesome wound. Ugly, isn't it? 5 years ago, this had my guts spilling out of it. I was in a fight with the villain to end all villains. I still won, but it nearly cost me my life. Luckily, I was backed up by a few friends, one of them being Sister Sage. Izuku perked up. Sister Sage? Do you mean Tsunade Senju? She practically has one of the best healing type quirks around and is able to combine that with her physical abilities to generate unrivaled strength. All Might chuckled. Wow, you really do know your stuff. I'm gonna take a wild guess and say you got a sketch of her in one of your journals. Yeah, 5 to be exact. Izuku beamed before realizing something. Wait, you said you got that injury 5 years ago, right? Was it the fight with Toxic Chainsaw? All Might blinked but laughed softly and shook his head. Nah, that lowlife couldn't even hope to deal this kind of damage to me. Sure, he got some hits in, but I've faced far tougher. The skeletal symbol of peace then sighed. No, my boy, this was actually a fight most of the world never even heard of. A villain known only to me, and a select few individuals. Even among the top personnel of the Heroics Committee, it's a closely guarded secret. Izuku looked deep in thought. I guess even the symbol of peace can feel fear, huh? That's the mark of being a hero, smiling even through the tough times. It's not an easy job, I'll give you that, All Might said. And please, when I'm like this, just call me Toshinori Yagi. Wow ... on a real name basis with All Might. Izuku breathed. This has to be a dream. Well, enough about me, what about you? Toshinori asked. I saw you floating earlier to give me back the bottles, and you obviously did something to knock the sludge villain out when he attacked you. Izuku rubbed the back of his head. Well, about that. This is kind of my own big secret. Izuku then proceeded to explain to Toshinori about how he got his powers, from eating the fruit of the devil to being trained by Silver's Rayleigh, to all the skills he had picked up along the way. I heard from Rayleigh about a wide-eyed kid he was training who had great power pushed onto him by fate. Toshinori noted. Can't believe that kid is you. Wait, you know Rayleigh's sensei? Izuku asked. The old geezer trained me too, kid. Toshinori chuckled. You know, you seem like just the kind of guy I'd entrust something very important to, but I figure you've got everything handled with what you have now. Izuku was now confused. What do you mean? Toshinori was about to explain when an explosion suddenly went off from the other side of the district. Confused, Toshinori checked his pockets to see the bottles holding the sludge villain were still safely holstered. Guess villainy never rests in this town. Toshinori sighed before buffing back up into his all-might form. Don't worry, young Midoriya. I still have plenty of time. Wait, let me come with you, Izuku said. I don't know why, but I feel like I need to be there too. All Might nodded and quickly leaped off. Izuku, stealing his nerves, jumped over the railings and began free-falling off the side of the building before transforming with the and flying after the symbol of peace, Super Alloy Darkshine. Having gotten sidetracked from chasing the sludge villain after All Might showed up, had decided to resume patrolling to make sure no other crimes were going on in the area. Of course, he was lucky or rather unlucky enough to run into a crime in progress right now, one that was giving even a seasoned pro like him a hard time. Ha ha ha, you puny heroes can't beat me. I'm invincible. The villain in question was a truly repulsive man. He was bald and stood at over 8 feet tall with dark green-blue skin and glowing yellow eyes. This was Gus the Ogre, a B-rank villain who had amassed quite a reputation and was responsible for felony assault, several counts of rape, larceny, and murder. His quirk gave him 12 arms, 3 on his left, 3 on his right, and 6 coming out of his back. Izuku and All Might both arrived at the scene of the crime. Other heroes were there, including Death Arms, Backdraft, Kamui Woods, Metal Bat, and Mount Lady. Metal Bat looked to be nursing a head wound with Kamui Woods checking up on him while Death Arms was trying to see a way through the flames that had formed in the chaos. We need to do something, Metal Bat said, getting up despite his bleeding head. He's going to kill that kid otherwise. Izuku perked up and turned to see Hilda, a worried look on her face. The two friends rushed over to each other, wanting to make sure they were okay. Hilda, what are you doing here? I should ask you the same thing. I was with my girls when we heard explosions going on and went to see another villain attack happening. Wanting to get a better idea of what was going on, the two friends moved through the crowds to get a better look at Gu, who had turned around just in time for them to see Katsuki Bakugo, a one-time childhood friend to someone whom Izuku heavily disliked, trapped within the villain, struggling to get out of the villain's ironclad grip. What really caught Izuku and Hilda's eyes was the look on his face, no longer an expression of arrogance and contempt but filled with desperation, fear, and pain, begging for someone to help him. Neither Izuku nor Hilda even thought about what they were going to do next. As if possessed, the two dashed out of the crowds and toward Gus, who was wrestling with Super Alloy Darkshine, the latter trying to free Katsuki from his hold. All Might had been prepared to jump into the fray when he saw Izuku and Hilda running toward Gus, who noticed them approaching and sneered as the heroes tried to stop them. Get back here. It's too dangerous. Death Arms called out, too shocked to reach and grab them. Izuku and Hilda, at speeds that could rival seasoned ninjas, leaped into the air appearing above Gus as Hilda raised her leg and delivered a powerful axe kick to his head while Izuku stretched his leg with it to kick Gus in the face, giving Super Alloy Darkshine a chance to push back and make a grab for Katsuki. The explosive blonde, as he was being pulled away, looked shocked seeing Izuku and Hilda rushing the villain without hesitation or fear. Hilda then gracefully backflipped through the air and landed on her feet as Izuku dashed back to her side, both teens glaring at Gus as he regained his composure. You brats shouldn't have gotten in my way. Now I'm gonna fucking kill the green-haired prick and fuck the bitch's dead body. Wow, do you practice being disgusting? Hilda asked, wrinkling her nose. Like a raging bull, Gus charged forward and delivered a rapid-fire barrage of blows with all of his fists. The force of his punches was so great, it kicked up a dust cloud as red splattered across the villain's vision, thinking he had just eviscerated the two youths. No, Kamui Woods cried in fury and sorrow as he prepared to send a tree trunk-like spear from his arm to attack the villain before something amazing happened. Gus suddenly screamed in agony, his once arrogant face filled with shock and pain as he stumbled back, looking at his hands ... or what used to be them. Now all the once lethal weapons were a bunch of bloody gushing stumps. My hands. Oh my god, my hands. As the dust cloud settled, everyone gazed in awe to see Izuku standing protectively in front of Hilda, his entire body covered in pure diamonds via. You know I could have dodged that, right? Hilda playfully said with a smirk as Izuku gave her a dry look through his diamond face. All right, but at least let me get a crack at him. He's all yours. Hilda grinned playfully as she dashed forward and reared her leg back, covering it in, having also managed to learn the ancient spiritual art and used it to kick Gus right in his groin. A sickening crack echoed through the district as every male in the nearby vicinity winced and unconsciously protected their private. Gus fell to his knees, unable to clutch his devastated nuts since he no longer had any hands. His cheeks then bulged before he spat up an iron ball that Hilda quickly backed away from. "You, bitch," Gus choked out before a sudden impact slamming down nearby alerted everyone. "You kids are the craziest I've ever seen." All Might laughed. Not just anyone would rush headlong into danger like that, and overwhelm a dangerous villain so casually. The symbol of peace then rushed forward, Gus shedding tears of terror and pain as he could do nothing to stop the incoming fist heading his way. Detroit Smash. With a massive punch, he created a shockwave tornado that sent Gus blasting into a nearby building like a gunshot and buried by the subsequent rubble. A sudden rainfall occurred, created by the tornado when it caused the clouds to move. Whoa, I had no idea All Might was strong enough to change the weather. Hilda whistled. Izuku's mind was racing. Not even improving one's muscle mass and physical strength could account for what All Might had just done. There was another force at work here. Still, with a smile on his face and his fist raised to the heavens, All Might was able to reassure the people that the danger had passed, as the onlookers cheered. "You idiots," Death Arms scolded while Kamui Woods and Metal Bat stood next to him. "There was no reason for you to risk your lives like that." "Still, that took major balls," Metal Bat said. "It would have been a bit tough for us to handle a guy like him. Even Super Alloy Darkshine was having a hard time until you two came along." "Well, Bat does have a point," Death Arms said in a conspiring tone. "With skills like those, the two of you will go pro in no time. And listen, hit up my agency if you two want to learn some efficient punching and grappling styles." "Nah, I'm good," Hilda shrugged. "I already have some good teachers." Izuku nodded. "Same. Hey, Kamui Wood said, slapping the back of his hand onto Death Arms' chest. "If anything, those two should come to my agency. Their skills can complement mine perfectly. And the green-haired kid can learn some restraining tricks." Metal Bat rolled his eyes as his colleagues ended up arguing with each other, letting Izuku and Hilda feel better already. The heroes had to put up the act of setting the law down even if the two teens had helped, to avoid other people from having the wrong idea and leading to vigilantism. With everything looking to be cleaned up, Izuku and Hilda decided to head home. Izuku sighed as he sent a quick text to Rayleigh to inform him that he might not be able to make it to training today. "Ugh, guess I gotta cancel my training day too," Hilda groaned, having gotten some teiyaki for herself and Izuku to share. "Oi, Deku." The two turned to see Katsuki glaring at them, but what surprised them was that his gaze seemed more subdued than normal. "I didn't need your help, you know. I could have easily handled that creep." "Sure, Bakugo, sure," Hilda said dryly with a smirk. Katsuki opened his mouth to retort but then closed it as he turned and sulked off, his hands in his pockets. Izuku frowned as he watched his former friend leave. Something told him that this experience had changed the explosive blonde in more ways than one. Not by much, but any change no matter how small counted. "Come on, let's head on home and see if I can whip your butt at Super Smash Bros. Ultimate." Hilda grinned as the two friends began to turn a corner. "Only, I am here. All Might." Izuku gasped in shock as Hilda nearly fell on her ass as well. "What are you doing here? Holy crap, is that literally All Might?" Hilda gawked. "And wait, why are you sounding like you've met him before? I actually wanted to speak with you kids." All Might laughed. "And young Midoriya, I know you've already seen my secret, but your friend here, best have her be prepared." "Prepared for what?" Hilda asked, as if to answer her question. All Might deflated in a puff of smoke, turning back into Toshinori Yagi. Hilda's jaw dropped literally to the floor when she saw the symbol of peace turn into a skeletal state. "It's a long story," Izuku said weakly to his friend. After Hilda had gotten over the shock, Toshinori took her and Izuku to a place away from prying eyes before speaking to them. Izuku and Toshinori had filled in Hilda on how their first meeting went before Toshinori got to the main subject at hand. "By now I'm sure you've realized, a simple quirk alone cannot accomplish what I did today. I normally wouldn't be saying this, but there's a reason I'm explaining everything. You see, 5 years ago, I decided to contemplate retirement." "Retirement, the symbol of peace." Izuku and Hila screamed in unison as Toshinori plugged his ears, having expected that response. "The villain who nearly ended my career and life is one that has been fought before, and only I have ever come close to truly ending his threat. But my closest friends and allies have warned me that he may not be gone for good, and I only just barely survived against him the first time, even with help," Toshinori explained as he sighed. "Which means I need to pass the torch so that my successor might have greater success." "And why are you telling us all this?" Hilda asked. Young Midoriya told me about his powers, and though he has what it takes, I feel like what I'm offering would be too much. So, young Yakasani, I was wondering if you, from your actions alongside Midoriya, would like the honor of being my successor and inheriting my true power. Is that you were going to tell me earlier before the villain attack distracted us? Izuku asked as Toshinori nodded. There are stories behind every hero. How they become great, rising up from adversity, or just finding a reason to fight evil. But most have one thing in common. Their bodies moved before they could have a chance to think. Tell me something. Did either of you think when you raced to save that boy? Izuku and Hilda shook their heads. No, it was all purely instinct. Bakugo may not be our friend, but we couldn't let him die, Hilda said. The only thoughts we did have were how we were going to distract that villain so Super Alloy Darkshine could get Bakugo away from him, Izuku added. Toshinori smiled. I thought so. I saw your eyes only seeing forward, towards your intended path. I need someone to take up my mantle when I retire. And I think you'd both make the perfect heroes to do so. But I thought only I was the one you wanted me to inherit whatever true power you have, Hilda pointed out. Toshinori chuckled. I can have more than one successor, my girl. One who can continue carrying the power I currently wield when I inevitably retire, and another who can properly represent the virtues of heroism and justice. That means two symbols, Izuku noted. I guess it's probably for the best that there be more than one symbol society can look up to. That's exactly it, my boy. There needs to be more than one symbol, not just a symbol of peace. Toshinori smiled. And believe it or not, I was born quirkless. The power I gained is from another, who inherited it themselves as well. The strength I have is my own power, alongside the power of 7 predecessors. All Might used to be quirkless. Izuku and Hilda gawked. Toshinori just shook his head playfully at the two teens' reaction before holding out his palm. Glowing energy coming from it. The name of this power, this ultimate quirk, is... Izuku and Hilda had to wonder if they were dreaming. Neither of them had heard of a power that could be passed from one person to another. But it was clear that whatever the energy in Toshinori's hand was, it had nothing to do with increasing muscle mass. Look at your faces. Toshinori laughed playfully before pausing. Wow, I'm acting just like Sensei did when she first offered the power to me. This is crazy ... And you think I could be worthy of this power? Hilda asked in amazement. Toshinori nodded. Don't worry, young Yakasani, I won't force this on you. It's your choice to do it or not. But if you accept, both a great honor and a heavy burden will be passed on to you. Well, guess it's a good thing she's got someone to help her carry it. Izuku smiled, making Hilda blush. And you're saying nobody knows about this power? Actually, some of the upper echelons of the Heroics Committee are aware, but only the trustworthy ones. You all know how shady some organizations can be, after all, Toshinori said. A few trusted doctors, some members of my agency, and quite a few pro-heroes who I trust with my life. In total, I'd say at least 1% of Japan's total population knows about. That's still a pretty big number if we're doing mathematics, Hilda noted. Still, there must be a lot of people you trust if that's the case. In all honesty, I could have given this power to either one of you from your actions alone, Toshinori said. You both jumped into action while the rest of us stood idly by. While one of the world's best heroes was helpless to do anything but hold the enemy off. You acted like true heroes out there, a rare attribute in our current society. Hilda put a finger to her chin. Well, my quirk is a mutant type that keeps my body in a perfect state of health. I've been able to regenerate from scratches, cuts, and bruises. I've almost never gotten sick. And I think I remember getting burnt once but easily shrugging it off. Quite the useful quirk for someone who wants to rush into the thick of it. Toshinori chuckled. Yeah, but I had to train my body. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to stand alongside Izuku in becoming a hero, Hilda said, draping an arm over her green-haired friend's shoulder. When we first met, we just clicked together. Izuku even helped me out with my own training. You two definitely seem attached at the hip. Toshinori smiled. But about my offer, do you accept it? Hilda shrugged. I've learned haki, rokushiki, and even a bit of fishman karate. What's a nice power boost from All Might to tie it all together? Toshinori smiled. No reluctance. You remind me of myself when I was your age. Before we begin, you should know that could tear apart whoever inherits it. But considering all the work you and young Midoriya have put in together, especially if what I've learned about you both training under Rayleigh is true, then that shouldn't be an issue. Hilda looked at her slender body and pouted a little, which went unnoticed by Izuku and Toshinori. Her quirk kept her body completely healthy, but it didn't necessarily mean she had to be so darn skinny. I think I have my own idea on how to bulk up for this new power I'm being given. Toshinori brought Izuku and Hilda to Dagaba Municipal Beach Park, which was completely filthy and covered in trash. Get ready, kids. We're about to get into some serious training so you both can be ready for the UA High entrance exams, Toshinori said. Well, let's do this, Hilda said, pumping her fist in the air. Let's not waste any time then, Toshinori said as he buffed up into his All Might form and plucked a strand of hair from his head. Now eat this. Why? Hilda awkwardly asked as she and Izuku stared at the presented hair. In order to inherit, you must ingest the current torch holder's DNA. Hair is the least disgusting part of the human body you can digest. All Might explained. Don't worry, I've washed my hair before coming here and made sure that there was nothing in my scalp. I guess that makes sense. Hilda sighed before taking the hair and gulping it down, gagging slightly at the taste of hair gel as she took a soda and chugged it down. Phwa. So glad I only have to do this once. However, she soon felt the changes in her body, energy flowing everywhere as she tensed up slightly before relaxing, Izuku placing a hand on her shoulder to make sure she was all right. You okay? Yeah, I'm fine. What a rush. I feel stronger, faster. It seems the Quirk agrees with you, young Yakasani, All Might noted. However, it's best that you learn to control this power. After all, one can still injure themselves no matter how trained their body is beforehand. Hilda nodded. Makes sense to me. Unfortunately, I'm not the right person to be teaching you that. After all, I was something of a prodigy when using it for the first time. All Might admitted. Fortunately, I have a few friends who know OFAS secret and can help you understand how to use it best. Thankfully, I won't have to contact Gran Torino for this. All Might took out his smartphone and hit up a few contacts. After a while, 3 individuals showed up. The first was a beautiful woman with pale blonde hair and a purple diamond mark on her forehead. The second was an old man with a fit build, silver hair, and a bushy mustache. The third and final individual was someone Izuku knew very well. Uncle Shanks Midoriya, the younger brother of Izuku's late father Hisashi, chuckled as he ruffled the green-haired boy's head. He was not an official pro hero, always traveling with a crew of close friends helping people around the world. He didn't have a quirk, but he made it for it in a scarily powerful proficiency in haki. How's it going, you little green bean? You still keeping that straw hat I gave you safe? Izuku beamed and nodded. Yeah, I'm thinking of having it be part of my hero costume when I go pro. So, this is the one you picked, huh? The woman said as she looked over Hilda. Gotta say, she seems like a good one. Could use a bit more meat on her bones though. I actually agree, Sister Sage. Hilda beamed, recognizing the woman as Tsunade Senju Aka, the combat medic hero. Sister Sage, I totally loved seeing you in action with All Might, Master Toad, and Serpent King. Tsunade laughed. Heh, this girl's got quite a brain on her. I like it. The old man nodded as he looked at Izuku and Hilda. I heard from Rayleigh about 2 bright-eyed pupils of his with a natural talent for what he taught them. It pleases me to finally meet you both. Same here. Why, you're Bang Silverfang, the martial arts hero who invented the water stream rock smashing fist. And you're quite well educated as well. I can see why Rayleigh saw so much potential in you. Bang chuckled. When I heard my cute little nephew had gotten the attention of All Might, I had to come over, Shanks said. Of course, I made sure to say hi to Inko first. This is gonna be so cool. Hilda gushed as she turned to Izuku. Not just learning from All Might but also red-haired Shanks, Sister Sage, and Bang Silverfang as well. I know. I really hope this isn't a dream. All Might chuckled at the 2 teens' enthusiasm. During this training, you both will be cleaning up this beach. It's been needed for some time anyway, so might as well kill 2 birds with 1 stone. The UA entrance exam is in 10 months, which should give us plenty of time to train you for what's to come. And I have just the way to bulk up. Hilda smirked to herself. Dagaba Beach was right at the edge of local ocean currents, picking up anything that got washed out to sea. Plenty of illegal dumpers took advantage of this. At one point in their training, Izuku and Hilda saw a hero that didn't take kindly to that. Whoa, it's Captain Planet. Captain Planet was a man who looked out for everyone and fought pollution of all kinds, not just the pollution one does to the environment, but also pollution done to people, such as drugs, abuse cases, and more. His quirk allowed him to harness the powers of fire, water, earth, air, and heart for various effects. Ha, look at that Boy Scout go. Shanks chuckled. He's always gotta make things out like a cheesy 80 seconds kids cartoon. Hey, he gets the job done all the same. Tsunade smiled, watching as Captain Planet took out the dumpers, largely villains hired by factories who were using less than scrupulous methods. Just goes to show that not all evil in this world is centered on the superpower element, Bang noted. Villains aren't just people who commit crimes with quirks and tools. They're also those that use whatever means they can to hurt others for their own benefit. And then again, there are a few villains who aren't even really all that evil. To begin with, Hilda said as she bit into a chocolate bar. Indeed, some people only commit crimes because they are desperate for survival or acceptance. Toshinori sadly noted. A good hero has to know when a crime is considered justifiable and lessen the amount of force used to bring them in. Well, Hilda and I always wanted to be heroes to help others, Izuku admitted. Because if there's one thing I learned from my dad and a few famous heroes in history, it's that with great power comes great responsibility. Well said, my boy. Toshinori smiled. Heck yeah, Hilda cheered, taking a hard bite out of her chocolate bar. Sheesh, dragging around a fridge is hard enough, but an extra 600 pounds is too much. Hilda panted as she finished pulling a whole refrigerator with All Might sitting on top of it. Nah, I lost weight. I'm only 500 pounds in this form now. All Might chuckled. Speaking of weight, you've been getting pretty big yourself, kid, Tsunade noted, poking Hilda's belly, making her giggle. Thanks to her constant binging, the once slim young woman had swelled up quite a bit in these past weeks. Her short shorts had ridden up, trying to contain the sizable layer flab that was her stomach. It stuck out from the rest of her by nearly an entire foot, pushing out past her shirt and giving anyone around her a good look at the jiggling massive chub. Of course, that wasn't to say the rest of her was lacking in growth. She'd gone up by at least 2 cup sizes since she'd started gaining, and her ass was looking much rounder than before. Laying beneath these bountiful buns were a set of thickened thighs, now double the size of their former selves. Even her arms seemed to have been affected, now sporting an entire layer of fat around themselves. Hilda ... Is there a reason you've been fattening up? Izuku asked, having also noticed his friend's weight gain. What? No way am I gonna go around sporting crazy muscles like I'm jacked on steroids. Hilda laughed as she gave her stomach a few proud pats. I should look approachable as a hero. Fat Gum's got the right idea, after all. Shanks smirked. I think the real reason is because she found your secret stash, Izuku blushed at his uncle's teasing grin and looked away, his face steaming red as Hilda giggled. It was true. The other reason she was putting on the pounds was because she knew how much Izuku liked thicker girls. Then again, the cinnamon roll loved all kinds of girls, no matter what they looked like. The 10 months passed considerably. Thanks to Hilda's quirk, her health wasn't impeded by her weight gain, and she made sure to pack on just as much muscle as she did fat, but blubber was still the predominant tissue she wanted to show off. Additionally, Shanks would sometimes ambush Izuku and Hilda in order to teach them how to react to unexpected situations. Naturally, there were breaks for meals, sleep, and classes. Thanks to the effort Izuku and Hilda were putting in, Dagaba Beach was quickly becoming resort-worthy again. At one point, Izuku had brought up the possibility of hidden bodies, prompting Toshinori to call his friend on the force, Naomasa Tsukachi, to investigate just in case. Fortunately, it seemed corpses were one thing no one was desperate enough to dump on the beach, so the training passed without incident. Hilda also incorporated her newfound bulk into harnessing. At first, she started using 5%, but as the 10 months went by, she made her way up to 10%. Man, I didn't know I'd be able to learn so much, Hilda said as she munched on some teiyaki with Izuku. Hilda was now at least triple the size she'd started at. Her body had grown, not just in weight, but in width, as if to accommodate her growth. Her stomach, which had already been round and flabby, had now expanded to become the largest part of her body. It stuck out nearly 3 feet and was now so large that it covered her crotch. Resting atop this enormous gut lay her breasts, which had undergone similar growths. No longer the flat size they'd once been, Hilda's bosom had blossomed into a beautiful rack. They were easily within the E-cup range by this point, and both were soft to the touch. It was safe to say that most of Hilda's weight had been distributed fairly evenly. Her breasts and belly were developing nicely, and her flabbier arms remained as firm and active as ever thanks to her training. But of the newfound additions brought on by her weight, her bottom half had easily changed the most. Hilda's ass was absolutely massive, now large enough that each cheek more resembled massive globes than human cheeks. Her round, enviably enormous rear was supported by a set of glorious, tree-trunk-sized thighs, made all the more obvious whenever she so much as took a step. You've been working up, girl, but in a good way. Tsunade laughed, slapping Hilda on the back as she grinned playfully in return before turning to Izuku. Like what you see? She playfully asked. There's so much more of me to love now. Why yeah. Izuku blushed shyly, which made Tsunade coo in adoration. You kids are so adorable, you know that. Shanks chuckled as he ruffled Izuku's hair. Still, you put in some good work. Indeed, I'm honestly amazed, Toshinori admitted. I only set aside a small area to clean, but you both cleaned up the entire beach. I can actually feel the ocean breeze, and there's fresh salt water hitting my nostrils instead of smog and rust, Bang said with content. We've already sent your applications for UA, Tsunade said. Don't worry, we got your parents' permission to do so. Just remember this when you take the exam next week, Toshinori advised. There is a difference between being lucky and being deserving. Don't get the two confused. You kids go and enjoy yourselves. You've both earned a break, Shanks said. I'll see you at home later, Izuku smiled and nodded. You got it, Uncle Shanks. Come on, let's go to Hanamura's diner, Hilda said, dragging Izuku along with a hungry glint in her eyes. Her appetite had increased with the rest of her body, but she was doing quite well in balancing her fat with muscle. Why yeah, sure, Hilda. The 4-season pros watched the two teens leave with smiles on their faces before Tsunade turned to Toshinori. So, who do you think will propose first? Let's not make assumptions like that. Shanks chuckled. That boy's a lucky dog. Of course, there was that girl, Mifa. Love comes in many forms. Bang nodded. Something tells me Izuku will love more than one wonderful girl in the coming months. The day of the UA entrance exam had finally arrived. Izuku and Hilda both stood at the entrance of the school and stared in awe at the majestic building in front of them. Can't believe we're finally here, Hilda said, adjusting the bill of her cap. Well, we're not gonna become heroes standing here. Izuku nodded. Yeah, let's take this thing down together. As the two friends stepped forward, Izuku suddenly tripped over a crack in the pavement. Before he could hit the ground, he got stopped in midair. Huh, what the heck just happened? Are you okay? Izuku and Hilda turned to see a cute girl with a plump curvy figure and chocolate brown hair in a bob. Her hand was touching Izuku's backpack, and upon close inspection, her fingertips had pink pads on them. Why yeah, I'm fine. Izuku stuttered as he was helped to his feet by the girl, a small bit of red on his cheeks. Sorry for using my quirk on you. I just thought it'd be a bad omen if someone fell on the first day. Nah, no problem at all. Hilda chuckled, wrapping a blubbery arm around Izuku and pressing him close to her bosom. He's got a quick and ready safety pillow by his side at all times. Oh cool, is your quirk like fat gums? The girl asked. Nah, my quirk keeps my body in a perfect state of health. I just decided to bulk up like this as an aesthetic choice, Hilda replied, patting her belly. Well, it's a nice choice either way. The girl said. Are you nervous about the exam? 'Cause I sure am. Anyway, guess I'll see you inside. The girl walked off as Hilda chuckled before lugging Izuku along with her. Come on, lover boy. Let's not dilly-dally. Izuku and Hilda were able to find some seats in the exam hall. Hilda took a moment to squeeze herself in a comfortable way as the two friends waited before a spotlight shined on the center stage, revealing Hisashi Yamada Aka, the voice hero, present mic. What up, what up? How's everybody doing? Can I get a HEEY? HEEY. Hilda got up and cheered, pumping her hammy fist into the air as Izuku blushed and giggled at her enthusiasm. Hilda wasn't the only one cheering, as a cheerful-looking girl with short pink hair and a golden star-shaped hair clip also stood up and cheered. You girls got style. I love it. Present Mike cheered, giving a double thumbs up before continuing. Alright, let's get down to business. The practical exam here is gonna consist of 10-minute mock battles in simulated urban settings. There are 7 battle zones in total from A to G. Izuku and Hilda looked at the cards they got before coming in and noticed they got 2 different battle zones. Izuku had Zone B while Hilda had Zone A. So they split us up so we can't work with friends. Must be why Tsunade-sensei suggested we train individually as well as together. Hilda realized. That sucks. Izuku sighed. Now you'll all be facing 3 types of robots worth a different series of points based on their difficulty. Shred those bots however you like, but friendly fire is a big no-no and will result in immediate disqualification. Trust US, well I'll know. Present Mike continued. Excuse me, but I have a question. A young man with glasses suddenly stood up and raised his hand, the spotlight shining on him. Hit me, Present Mike said. The printouts handed when we came in listed 4 types of faux villains. If this is an error on official UA materials, it is shameful. As exemplary students, we expect the best from Japan's most notable school. The boy then pointed at Izuku. And you've been muttering this whole time. It's distracting. If you think this is just some pleasure joint, then leave immediately. Why don't you back the fuck up, you 4-eyed stick ass? A familiar voice suddenly shot up as Izuku and Hilda looked shocked to see Katsuki standing up. Deku's muttering may be as annoying as hell, but if you were really paying attention as much as you're acting like you were, then you'd realize he's just analyzing what Present Mike is saying. Wait, is Bakugo defending me? Izuku thought in bewilderment. The bespectacled young man was aghast at Katsuki's bluntness, but Present Mike took it in stride. Alright, settle down. Yes, there is a 4th type of villain, but it's worth 0 points. Nada. Zilch. You'll find one in every battle center and you can smash it up if you want to, but it won't add up to your score. Well, at least that'll provide some excitement. Hilda chuckled. Alright people, that's all for today. Just remember these words as you go out. Napoleon Bonaparte once said that a true hero is one who overcomes life's misfortunes. Now let me hear a plus ultra before you go. Izuku had made his way to Zone B and was waiting for the exam to begin when he noticed the girl who had helped him back outside the exam center. She looked nervous and was trying to calm herself down. Being the nice guy he was, Izuku decided to go over and give her some encouragement. However, he was stopped by the glasses-wearing young man from the exam hall. That girl is trying to focus. What do you think you're planning on doing? Distracting her and harming her chances of success. The boy was suddenly grabbed and forcefully spun around to stand face to face with a taller boy with a messy mop of black curly hair and his own pair of glasses, as well as hazelnut brown eyes and an annoyed look on his face. Seemed to me like he was just trying to give her words of encouragement. Do you always expect the worst of people? Why the hell are you even trying to be a hero? The boy was taken aback. I am here to carry on the noble legacy of heroes that has been in my family for generations. Legacy doesn't mean jack here at UA. You're not gonna get any special privileges here, the taller boy said coldly. You gotta get by on your own merits or you're going to an early grave, plain and simple. Alright, time to get moving. Present Mike's voice blared suddenly. What are you waiting for? Heroes don't sit around waiting for the clock to hit 0. Move it or lose it, zygotes. Izuku and the taller glasses-wearing boy both took off immediately, leaving the other glasses-wearing boy to falter in shock before quickly regaining his focus and boosting forward with engines in his leg. Izuku had taken a running start before jumping, using the sail into the air as he perched himself on the rooftop of a nearby building and looked around for any robots, eventually finding some and pointing his finger like a gun. Light building up in the tip from... Alright, game on. In Zone A, Hilda was running at surprising speeds despite her girth. Already she had encountered her first target, a one-pointer. As she dodged the first attack, she noticed a switch on the robot's back. So hey, make sure the robots can be disabled even if an examinee doesn't have a quirk capable of outright demolishing them. But why aren't there simulations of people to rescue? That's a big part of being a hero too, she thought. Oh well, time to put my training and all this beautiful blubber to use. With a grace that nobody would expect of a big girl like her, she flipped in midair before diving down with her large pillowy rear slamming down on the robot, crushing it into a metal pancake. Heh, most guys would kill to be sat on like that ... but I'm saving room for the one that matters. Hilda smiled, her chubby cheeks blushing a slight pink. Another robot came up behind her but was soon sliced in half by a sparkling cyan laser fired by a flamboyant-looking young man with blonde hair and an almost permanent smile on his face. Yo, thanks for that. Hilda waved only to notice a three-pointer barreling down on them, only for a vortex to drag it back and cause it to fly into the cheerful pink-haired girl's open mouth, which she then swallowed without any difficulty as it seemed to shrink so it could fit inside before swallowing. The girl's cheeks were now puffed up like a chipmunk's, which made her look absolutely adorable before she spat the robot out, the machine growing back to its regular size as it crashed into another three-pointer, destroying both of them. Mercy, the three of us make quite the team, the blonde boy noted, sparkles seeming to dazzle off him. It's fun to finally just cut loose, you know? The pink-haired girl grinned. I'm Kirby, by the way. Hilda smiled. Hilda, a pleasure to meet ya. Izuku had decided to get into the action, landing in the center of a street and looking around to see robots of various points coming from all sides. Suddenly, spears of solid ice rained down from the score and stabbed into some of the robots as the black-haired boy with glasses who stood up for him earlier leaped down like a predator pouncing on its prey, landing back-to-back with Izuku as there were still some robots surrounding them. You take this side, I take this side. Izuku nodded. Got it. Izuku turned his arms into machine guns with then opened fire, tearing apart the robots in front of him with a hail of bullets as the other boy took a deep breath before breathing out a massive torrent of flames from his mouth that incinerated the robots he was facing. You know, I'm surprised there aren't any people or dummies to simulate rescue scenarios, the other boy said. Oh, I'm Ben, by the way. Benio Torkiroshi. Izuku Midoriya. Izuku replied. And yeah, it is kinda weird, but maybe the school has a reason for it. Meanwhile, the teachers were watching the students in the various battle zones on a large bank of monitors. Principal Nedzu, a rodent-like animal with the quirk, which gave him an unparalleled amount of intelligence, observed the exam. They don't know how many villains there are or where they are, so they use everything they have at their disposal to find targets. Some use overwhelming power, others use intelligence gathering, and still others unbridled speed. Some simply remain cool under pressure as they search. The best use a combination of all of these. Also watching with the principal were several other teachers of UA, all of them taking interest in several different examinees showcased on the monitors. Fighting villains is only half the exam, of course. Ryu Suzaku Aka Captain Falcon said, we didn't tell the students about the other half. After all, their actions in that regard must be genuine. Fortunately, we do have a few promising students in that regard as well. But the real test is still to come. Nedzu grinned giddily in agreement before flipping open a glass case and slapping his paw on top of the big red button it was covering. Well, that should just about do it, Izuku said as he and Ben looked around to see if there were any robots left or examinees to help out. Suddenly, explosions caught their attention as a large shadow loomed overhead. The two boys looked up to see a skyscraper-sized robot glaring down at them. That's the 0-pointer, Izuku said, his face blanching with horror. They never mentioned it'd be so huge. Okay, anyone who can't take that thing, get the heck out of Dodge. Ben called out to the other examinees, who nodded in agreement and scattered. Those that got stuck or tripped up were helped by a few others. We only have 2 minutes left, Izuku noted. They must have unleashed it to really test the candidates. Well, not a lot of them have the guts to take this behemoth on, Ben said. but something tells me you and I can handle this. Oh, hearing the familiar voice, Izuku looked and saw the girl who helped him outside the exam hall. Without the slightest bit of hesitation, Izuku created a clear blue sphere in his hand that quickly expanded as soon as one word exited his mouth. Room. In the blink of an eye, Izuku had used it to create a room around the entire zone before using it to turn his arm into a blade of solidified liquid metal, which he used to deliver a powerful cutting slash imbued with. Right before many of the examinees' eyes, the robot and the buildings around it had been cleanly cut in half. Izuku then made some motions with his fingers to dump the cut-off parts on top of the robot, completely crushing it and making sure not to accidentally crush anybody else. Meanwhile, Hilda and Kirby had seen the zero-pointer in their zone arrive and were already working together to take it down. Kirby had swallowed a cape that she seemed to have on hand and was now donned in a white supersuit with red gloves, red boots, and a red cape as well as a winged circlet on her head. She then grabbed Hilda and leaped high into the air with surprising strength and speed before throwing her heavy cargo straight at the metal behemoth. KANTO smash. With a mighty right straight, Hilda smashed the zero-pointer right in the face, its head caving in on itself. Before Hilda could start falling, Kirby zoomed toward her and caught her before landing on the rooftop of a nearby building. That was awesome, Kirby cheered. I had no idea you could punch that hard. Heh, man, I bet Izuku took down his with style. Hilda laughed as the two girls high-fived. With the zero-pointer destroyed, Izuku made his way over and helped get the rubble off the girl before helping her to her feet. You okay? Yeah, I'll be fine. She winced as she faltered on one of her feet. I think I sprained my ankle though. By now the exam was over and a short old lady had arrived. Nice work, everyone. Anyone who has any injuries, I'll be sure to get to each of you. Hey, Granny Chio, can I request permission to help? Ben asked as the old lady nodded. Permission granted, dearie. Granny Chio. Izuku pondered before he recognized the woman. No way, that's the youthful heroine, Recovery Girl. Recovery Girl was the school nurse, and her quirk worked by applying her lips to an injured patient, using their body's natural energy to repair the damage. Yup, she's one of the best medics around. Taught me everything I know about healing, Ben said as he looked over Achako's sprained ankle. And that's an easy fix right there, nothing to it. She's your grandma, Achako asked. Not biologically, Ben clarified. She just helped train me and I kinda call her that because of how close we are. Ben's eyes suddenly changed, becoming a beautiful glowing mix of orange, yellow, and red as his palms emitted the same colored light, which he waved over Achako's ankle as her eyes widened in amazement at the pain disappearing completely. Any injuries on you, young man? Recovery Girl asked as she approached Izuku. Nah, nothing but a bit of light bruising here and there, Izuku admitted. The old lady then left with Ben to check up on the other examinees and heal any injuries they may have had. Izuku then noticed the engine boy approaching him. I apologize for misjudging you back at the entrance. You truly showed admirable traits worthy of a hero. The boy said sincerely. My name is Tenya Ida. I presume you've heard of my brother, Tensei. Izuku's eyes lit up. The turbo hero, Ingenium. I had a feeling that you might have been related to him, but that's so cool. I must admit, I'm embarrassed at being reminded of how a real hero should act. That said, you were quick to rush in to save that girl, Tenya said before realizing something. Also, I don't know if you were aware of any other hidden factors regarding the exam, but either way I'm beginning to suspect there was a hidden parameter we weren't told about. Yeah, a part of me feels that way too, Izuku said before looking at Ben healing a boy with multiple arms, wondering just what kind of power he had that let him use ice and fire and heal others with a touch. A week had passed and Izuku and Hilda were hanging out together and playing Super Smash Bros. Ultimate while waiting for their exam results. You wanna know something funny? I met a girl at the exam named Kirby who looked kinda like the game Kirby, except she was a human and was pretty bubbly and friendly. Hilda noted. Guess some quirks manifest as the characteristics of characters from fiction? Izuku chuckled. Dinner's ready, kids. Inko called out. Shanks had also decided to come over along with Hilda's mom, who had been more than happy to spoil her daughter when she started gaining weight to harness OFA. All right, Hilda cheered as she and Izuku zoomed over, having several plates of food prepared for them. Izuku, due to his extremely high metabolism, and Hilda because of her now bottomless stomach and bigger intake. So, anything up with you kids? Shanks asked. Izuku shook his head. Nothing, just curious about something that happened during the exam is all, Uncle Shanks. After dinner, the test results came in the mail. To Midoriya's and Yasukani's surprise, the letter included a hologram projector. BOOYAH. I am here, on live feed. All Might exclaimed, appearing on the projector. Sorry that I wasn't able to contact you kids at all this week, but I was buried in paperwork due to the fact that I'm going to be the new Heroics 101 teacher at UA High. And what does that mean for you, you might ask? I think you will both be quite pleased to know that young Midoriya earned 100 villain points and young Yasukani earned 75. Awesome, looks like we're getting in. Hilda cheered as she and Izuku high-fived. That number alone would get you both in without any problem. But the practical exam is not graded on combat alone. You both must have noticed it, yes. The fact that there were no rescue simulations, despite this being an exam dedicated to enrolling in a hero academy. Well, there's a very good reason for that. We can't just offer simulations for rescues. Otherwise, how would we know if it was genuine? Shanks nodded. He's got a point, you know. Izuku and Hilda were silent as they saw recordings of themselves smashing robots as well as helping their fellow examinees and encouraging others to do the same. Did we really do all that? Izuku asked. You both not only acted selflessly to save others, but you inspired your fellow examinees to follow your example. The faculty at Yale was practically begging for the two of you to become students here. Altogether, you both earned 80 rescue points each, putting you both in the top 2 spots for this exam. A grid was shown that detailed everybody's scores on the entrance exam. First, Izuku Midoriya. Second, Hilda Yasukani. Third, Benio Torkiroshi. Fourth, Katsuki Bakugo. Fifth, Kirby Sakurai. Sixth, Ijiru Kirishima. Seventh, Achako Uraraka. Eighth, Ibara Shizaki. Ninth, Itsuka Kendo. 10th, Tenya Ida. Young Midoriya, young Yasukani, congratulations to you both. All Might said, his voice now less loud and bombastic but no less proud. This is your hero academia. Izuku and Hilda sat in silence along with their families before the teens burst into cheers. Shanks smiling proudly with a nod of his head while Inko and Hilda's mom wept tears of joy and hugged each other. You'd be proud to see how far your kids come, Hisashi. Shanks thought, a melancholic look on his face. I miss you, brother, but I promise I'll keep looking after Inko and Izuku even if it kills me. As one might suspect, the acceptance rate for UA High was only 1 in 300. 6 people had gotten in due to recommendation, with another 42 through the regular exam. Izuku and Hilda had been placed in Class 1A, one of only 2 hero course classes for that year. Most of the other students were with General Ed, basically a regular high school. There were also business and support course classes. When the two friends finally got to the class, they looked up to see the utterly massive door in front of them with one painted in big red letters. Man, that is a huge door. Izuku gulped. Hilda grinned as she patted her belly, her school uniform having been tailor-made to fit her girth. Hey, it's gotta be for people of my size, right? Izuku giggled bashfully. All right. They both headed inside and took their seats, seeing a few of the students already there. There was the black-haired boy Izuku befriended at the entrance exam as well as the pink-haired girl Hilda teamed up with. Katsuki was also there, his feet propped up on his desk just like he did back at Aldera. Take your feet off that desk this instant. It's the first day of school and you're already disrespecting it by scuffing school property. Katsuki gave an annoyed scoff at Tenya, who was flailing his arms like some kind of robot on drugs. Izuku watched the exchange, unsurprised that Tenya managed to make it in. Hey, you made it in. The brunette girl Izuku saved said as she came over. I'm so glad we're in the same class. I'm Achako Uraraka. Izuku smiled back. Same here. I hope you came here for more than making friends, came a gruff voice, shocking the class. They all looked to see a scruffy man on the ground, wrapped up in a yellow sleeping bag like a caterpillar and lying on his left side. This is the UAS hero course. Who the hell is that? Most of the students thought in silence as the man got out of the sleeping bag. My name is Shota Aizawa and I'll be your homeroom teacher for your time here at UA. Head for your lockers and put on your gym uniforms. We're starting with a Quirk assessment test to see what we have to work with here. The students were confused as they did as their teacher told them to and came outside onto the gym field, where Aizawa was waiting for them. Aizawa-sensei, isn't this kind of soon? What about orientation? Achako asked. UA doesn't follow normal course curriculum. After all, you're not just here to further your education. You're here to train to become heroes, Aizawa explained before taking out a course book. Let's start with a quick roll call. Make sure everyone is here. I'll go in order of student seating. The students all stood at attention as their teacher called on each of them. Iwuga Ayama, here. Mercy, called out the blonde-haired boy Hilda met at the practical exam. Mina Ashido, here, cheerfully called a pink-skinned, alien-looking girl. Suyua Sui, here. Jiro, called a girl with long black-green hair and a frog-like face. Tenya Ida, here. Tenya called out, hand raised. Achako Uraraka, here. Mashurao Aojiro, here, called a blonde boy with a long, muscular tail. Denki Kaminari, here, called another blonde young man with black lightning bolts marking it, likely due to hair dye. Ijiru Kirishima, here, called out a red-headed boy. His body looked rather angular for a teenager. Kuji Koda, here, shyly muttered a boy who almost looked like a living mountain. Rikadu Sato, here, called out a large young man with thick lips. Mizo Shaoji, here, calmly called a man wearing a face mask, speaking through the shape-shifting arms that spread from his normal ones. Kyoyuka Jiro, Here, Cooley called a girl with violet hair, her earlobes extending into plug jacks. Hanta Siro. Here, called out a boy with tape dispensers on his elbows, as well as short black hair. Fumikage Takoyami. Here, calmly called a young man with a black bird's head, but with regular teeth. Shoto Todoroki. Here, coldly said a young man with the left side of his face was scarred around the eye, with red hair on that side and white hair on the right side. Toru Hagakure. Here, called a perky girl who with wavy chartreuse hair with pink specks, big round eyes, with the pupils being violet on top, teal on the bottom, and yellow on the inside, and light yellow bushy eyelashes. Katsuki Bakugo. Here, Izuku Midoriya. Here, Minoru Mainta. Here, called out a really short kid, his purple hair seeming to have spheres growing out of it. Momoge Yurazu. Here, called a young woman who had long, black hair tied back in a large ponytail. Hilda Yasukani. Here, Benio Torkiroshi. Yo, Uncle Shota. The black-haired boy with glasses said. Don't call me that during school hours. Aizawa chided before continuing. Kirby Sakurai. Here, the pink-haired girl chirped. And finally, Penny Polandina. Salutations. A cute girl with freckles and long orange hair waved. Okay, that's everyone, Aizawa said before taking out his phone and showing the standard gym test that allowed no quirk usage. You all remember these 8 activities you all did in middle school, right? This country still insists on forbidding quirks when calculating the average of these records, which makes no rational sense. Of course, the Department of Education is procrastinating on this. Aizawa then tossed Izuku a softball that had a black band around it, the green-haired boy staring at it in surprise. Midoriya, you got the highest score in the practical exam, correct? What was your record on the softball pitch in junior high? You, 0.70 meters, I think. Aizawa nodded. Try using your powers this time. Don't you mean Quirk, sensei? Momo asked. Midoriya is a unique case, let's just say. Hilda grinned. Just watch, guys, you're gonna love this. Izuku decided to go for a simple approach. Taking a pitching stance and a deep breath, Izuku reeled back before his arm glowed with energy as he harnessed the before throwing with all his might, creating a massive shockwave as everyone covered their ears, Kyoka especially. Damn, what was that? Denki cried. Aizawa looked down at his phone when it gave him the results and blinked before showing it to the class. 1,749.7 meters. Whoa, not bad. That's so manly, Ijiru exclaimed excitedly. You all need to know your maximum limit, Aizawa said. It's the most rational way of figuring out your potential as a hero. Man, this is gonna be so much fun. Mina cheered. Oh crap, now you've gone and fucking done it. Benio cursed. Everyone was curious why he said that, only for the air to become cold and dead as Aizawa's eyes seemed to glow blood red as he zeroed in on Mina. What was that, Ashido? He asked, his voice coming out in a growl. Did you think this was going to be fun and games or something? Mina wilted in Aizawa's gaze as he towered over her like an angry shadow. Being a hero isn't about having fun, Ashido. How many likes you get on your newest post doesn't matter, and the number of followers you have doesn't matter when you are staring a villain dead in the face. And if you think you can be a hero and get by with your charms and good looks, then you are certainly not meant to be here. Mina stumbled back a little, her eyes wide with fear as the beginning of tears began forming in the corners. I'm sorry, you're sorry. Aizawa spat the word like it was the vilest poison imaginable. Tell that to the man whose wife you failed to save because you were too busy making sure you looked perfect for the cameras. Tell that to a child who has to grow up without a parent because you were too busy with your ego. Tell me, Ashido, are you prepared to have that conversation? Mina couldn't answer, her sobs the only response she could muster. That's what I thought. Aizawa then stepped back, the angry look on his face not leaving. If you want to screw around and play fun and games, then how about this then? Whoever comes in last will be immediately expelled. Hey, wait, how can you expel someone on the first day? That's not fair. Achako called out. Unfair. The world is filled with unfairness and despair, and you want to complain about it? Aizawa retorted. If you're going to be heroes, you need to learn how to fight back against that unfairness, and you can't do that by just complaining. UA will be pitching one test after another in an effort to break you. You'll only survive by becoming unbreakable. You'll need to be more than strong. You'll need to be plus ultra. Aizawa's words really hit the students hard. It finally sunk in for them just how much they'd have to go through in order to become heroes. Minoru nervously gulped, due to being the least physically fit of everyone and not feeling confident about his chances. He's right, you know, Benio pointed out. I know about UA more than anyone here, and we can't just sit around with our thumbs up our asses. We need to face every challenge thrown at us with everything we got. Trial 1, 50-meter dash. Tenya's quirk allowed him to sprint across the finish line in 3.04 seconds, while Tsuyu, despite speed not being her best, managed to get 5.58 seconds, hopping across the finish line like a frog. Looking good, Izuku complimented Tsuyu and Tenya as they walked back into the group. If only it was longer, Tenya sighed. I could only change up to third gear with this much room. Ochako used her quirk to lighten her clothes in order to run faster, while Aojiro used his tail to kangaroo jump across the track. Hyuga went fast using his quirk to blast himself backward with 2 good shots, getting him past the finish line just behind Mina, who skated ahead using her quirk, which allowed her to secrete an acidic substance. She could control the pH and viscosity. Using my dazzling laser for more than a second hurts my poor tummy. Hyuga clarified the drawback of his quirk to Mina, who had managed to recover from Aizawa's rather harsh calling out earlier. Man, that's gotta suck. It's so cool and sparkly. Izuku decided to be cheesy and used the to automatically teleport to the finish line. Hilda boosted herself along with OFA powering her up, everyone gazing in amazement as she zoomed across like a rocket-powered bowling ball. Damn, you've got some girth on you, Aijuru complimented. Hilda patted her belly proudly. I may look fat, but underneath this chub is pure muscle. Katsuki blasted himself across like a rocket with his explosions, while Benio turned into a literal bolt of lightning, reappearing on the other side of the track while dusting off his pants. Kirby took out a tire and ate it, much to everyone's confusion before her outfit changed suddenly from her gym uniform to wearing a backward red baseball cap, a red and yellow jacket, a green tube top with a gold star on it, and blue jeans with red boots. She then spun like a wheel, being surrounded by the aura of one before rolling across the track at race car speeds. What? Zero asked, flabbergasted. That's her quirk in action. Katsuki began explaining. It's called, depending on the object she's eaten, she can transform into a different form depending on the property of that object and use powers related to the transformation. She can't exactly copy people's quirks, but she can transform into one of her forms based on the power of the quirk. Wow, an info dump from Bakugo. Is she your girlfriend or something? Hilda teased the explosive blonde with a smirk, only to get a deadpan look in response. Oh holy crap, she is your girlfriend, isn't she? We met a little while after the incident with that sludge villain, Katsuki said. Honestly, even I don't know how the fuck we got together. It's because we balance each other out. Kirby giggled, glomping Katsuki from behind as he merely grunted. Penny seemed to produce jets from the bottom of her feet and boosted across, getting ahead of Fumikage, who created a shadowy bird-headed spirit that gripped the ground halfway and slingshotted him across. Trial 2, Grip Test. Izuku used the again for this one, completely crushing his gripping device into a ball of scrap metal as he blushed sheepishly. Sorry. Hey, don't be showing off now, sweetie. Hilda teased as she charged OFA through her grip, getting a score of 560 kilograms. Just behind him was Xiaoji, whose use of his quirk to let him reach 540. Benio's arm seemed to become encased in rock and stone as he gripped his device, getting a score of 678 kilograms. Smiling satisfactorily, he dispelled the rock gauntlet, which turned into dust in the wind. However, Kirby inhaled the pebbles and dust and transformed into a new form consisting of a brown leotard, baggy beige pants, brown boots, and wearing a crown composed of a set of rocks on a purple, pink, and orange base with a pair of horns. The same purple, pink, and orange decorated the rest of her outfit as well. Turning her hand into a giant stone fist, she squeezed her device tightly and smiled at her score of 640 kilograms. Penny's arm seemed to surge with light green data lines as she gripped her device so hard, it began creaking. Soon, it ended up being snapped in half as she grinned bashfully. That's a bit embarrassing. Just be glad we have more on hand. Aizawa sighed, pinching the bridge of his nose. Trial 3, Standing Long Jump. Izuku watched as the students tried to use their quirks to aid them in this. Hyuji called in a flock of birds for him to jump on and carry him forward. Tenya almost cleared the sandbox, using his engines to propel him farther forward. Ochako barely cleared it, though almost throwing up as she did so, and Shoto was another one who easily cleared by blasting himself off an ice pillar. Hilda managed to fly past the box, and Kirby transformed into the form she used back in the practical exam to help Hilda reach the zero-pointer, sailing across the sandbox effortlessly. When Izuku's turn came, he made use of the to glide himself across. Benio simply snapped his fingers and a pocket of air built up underneath him before launching him across the sandbox. Penny emitted jets from her feet again to boost herself across as well. Momo also managed to clear the sandbox by creating springs beneath her feet as well as a makeshift glider on her arms. Trial 4, Repeated Side Steps. Minoru surprised everyone by making good use of his quirk, creating piles of his hairballs to bounce between at rapid speeds, though Izuku was able to use the to send him flying back and forth with repulsive forces. Hilda made use of both OFA and the Rokushiki technique, Soru, to zip back and forth like a blur, leaving behind after images. Benio turned into pure electricity and zipped back and forth at dizzying speeds. Penny activated her jets again and did the same. Trial 5, Ball Through. Since Izuku had already done this as an example, he was exempt. Hilda went first, and with an OFA-charged pitch, she threw her ball with such strength it created a sonic boom that cut through the clouds, scoring her 705.4 meters. Kirby transformed again. This time wearing an outfit a Machai Pounder would wear, complete with a Hachimaki headband and wielding a hammer. Tossing her ball into the air, Kirby spun and struck the ball with her hammer, acting like a baseball bat, sending it rocketing far away and scoring her 1,038.7 meters. Damn, for a petite girl like her, she hits hard. Denki noted. You don't know the half of it. Pikachu, Katsuki smirked. Benio reeled back and then threw his ball so hard, it combusted and sailed off like a burning comet, everyone watching it go before it exploded in the far distance. Aizawa sighed as he just scored Benio with 1,999.1 meters. Penny's arm glowed with the light green data lines again as it unfolded into various segmented mechanical parts, revealing a cannon inside as she loaded her ball and aimed it forward, charging up before firing it like a bullet from a railgun, scoring her 1,234.5 meters. Exactly as I calculated. She beamed as her arm turned back to normal. Does she have some kind of robot transformation quirk? Izuku silently pondered to himself. The one to blow everyone out of the water was Ochako, who removed her ball's gravity and sent it soaring into the stratosphere. Everyone gawked when Aizawa showed that she got infinity. Soon, all the tests were over and everyone was catching their breath or cooling off. Aizawa was busy tallying up their scores from the tests. As they took the time to talk, Aizawa-sensei seems kinda like a hard ass. Huh, Hilda noted. I think I recognize him. Izuku said. I think he's actually the Erasure hero, Eraserhead. You're right on the money there, Benio said. He's got a wicked strong quirk. Allows him to temporarily disable the quirks of anybody he's looking at. Really, that's so cool, Kirby said. But now that you mention it, I think I remember him actually expelling students from his class because they didn't show potential or disappointed him. I see ... that's troubling. Momo frowned. I was honestly expecting him to be bluffing to make us do our best. Hey, cut him some slack, Benio said. The ones who managed to prove to him that they could take things seriously and not half-ass anything stayed. The rest figured UA was too stifling and went to different hero schools but took the lessons to heart. Suddenly, Izuku felt a chill go up his spine as he turned around to see Shoto right behind him, a stone-cold glare on his face. Why yes, can I help you? Midoriya, was it? How is it someone as strong as you wasn't considered for recommendation? You can't prove your chops by just getting in on recommendation. Everyone knows that. Benio scoffed. You really think it's that easy? Do you know how many promising students are offered recommendations each year? Ada was offered one due to his family history but wound up falling just short, so he took the entrance exam instead. Those who are offered recommendations still have to prove they deserve it, and even if they fail, that doesn't prevent them from entering UA. Shoto retorted before returning his focus to Izuku. But I don't remember seeing you at the recommendation exam, and I'm pretty sure you would stand out. And yet you're easily blowing the rest of us out of the water. That much natural talent. And yet, you could be saying the same thing to me, you know. Benio snapped. You want to know something? I was offered recommendations but I turned them down. So what do you have to say, Two-Face? Katsuki sneered, stepping in as well, much to Izuku and Hilda's surprise. We all worked our asses off to get here. I don't take kindly to those who think they can only skate by without putting in the work. Man, Bakugo has been surprising us a lot today. Izuku and Hilda simultaneously thought. Shoto narrowed his eyes as he grabbed Katsuki's wrist with his right hand, causing it to frost over. However, the explosive blonde barely flinched. His angry gaze kept straight on him. Half of my quirk is not truly mine. I will never use it, except to counter the part that is. Katsuki snarled as he grabbed Shoto's left wrist with his free hand, his trademark temper showing true to form. You think you can just coast by with only half your power, you bastard? Just then, both boys felt their quirks disappear and they were wrapped up by Aizawa's scarf. What the hell is this shit? It's a carbon nanofiber capture scarf, Aizawa explained. Knock each other about in mock battles all you like, but there will be no violence against other students during normal school hours. I'd prefer not to use my quirk too much. I get dry eye, damn it. The two boys soon stood down and Aizawa showed everyone their rankings on a holoscreen. First, Izuku Midoriya. Second, Benio Torkiroshi. Third, Penny Polendina. Fourth, Kirby Sakurai. Fifth, Hilda Yasukani. Sixth, Momoye Urazu. Seventh, Shoto Todoroki. Eighth, Katsuki Bakugo. Ninth, Tenya Ida. 10th, Fumikage Takoyami. 11th, Mizo Shaoji. 12th, Mishirao Aojiro. 13th, Ijiro Kirishima. 14th, Mina Ashido. 15th, Ochako Uraraka. 16th, Kuji Koda. 17th, Rikadu Sato. 18th, Tsuiwa Sue. 19th, Yuuga Aoyama. 20th, Hantasiro. 21st, Denki Kaminari. 22nd, Kyoka Gyro. 23rd, Toru Hagakure. 24th, Minoru Mainta. First thing I should mention, I was partially bluffing. Sorry for the lie, but I had to make sure each of you took these tests seriously. Momo sighed in relief. So I was half right. Yeah, you better get used to this. Uncle Shoto likes playing tricks on the students he sees potential in. Wants to keep them on their toes and all that. Benio explained. Don't go giving away my secrets, brat, Aizawa said, giving the boy a stink eye. Of course, I would have expelled the one who scored less than 0, but even mine to perform decently enough. I'm safe, Minoru cried as he collapsed to the floor. Well then, since you've gotten your results, go ahead and head back to class, Aizawa said as he turned to leave. Your curriculum sheets are back in the classroom on the first desk. Take one and give them a look over. As Aizawa walked off, he sighed as he turned to see All Might watching him from the bushes. Those two brats you took in, Midoriya and Yasukani. They definitely show great promise, though Midoriya can be pretty cheeky with those powers of his, and it's not like you to be so light-hearted. All Might retorted. I remember last year you caught flack from parents for expelling an entire class of students. None of them were willing to take it seriously until I set them straight, Aizawa said. That's why we tweaked the entrance exam this year to make it harder. But this class, they definitely show promise. They keep this up, and we'll likely have ourselves a strong new generation of heroes. Of course, let's not forget young Torkiroshi. All Might smiled. Young Midoriya isn't the only one who gained a great power unrelated to a quirk. And Sakurai and Polendina are both their own wild cards, Aizawa said. Assuming these kids develop the right level of trust, perhaps they can be trusted with the secrets they hold. As Izuku and Hilda left school, they were approached by Tenya. Midoriya, Yasukani. That was exemplary work on the tests today. It really showed how far I have to go. Hilda flexed her pudgy but firm bicep. Ha, you know it. And I'm still learning how to use my quirk too. Hey Ada, is it true what Todoroki said earlier? Izuku asked. Sadly, it is. Only 6 students who receive a recommendation can follow through on it. Tenya admitted. To determine who deserves that right, a special test is set up. I was just behind the 6th place finisher, so I had to make do with the entrance exam. And things certainly didn't get any easier once we were successfully enrolled. I was surprised by Aizawa-sensei's judgment. Hey, he may be a hard ass, but he does make a few decent points. Hilda shrugged. Tenya nodded. Still, I find lying to be just downright immoral. Oh, get that log out of your ass, Hilda said, slapping Tenya on the back. A lot of heroes have been deceptive toward villains and nobody judges them for it. Hey, Achako called out, running up to the group. Wait up you guys. Are you going to the station? I'll join you. Don't forget about us. Kirby cheered as she came in as well, dragging Katsuki along. Any room for 2 more? Ben asked as he and Penny walked up as well. Ha, guess your girlfriend's got you pegged, Bakugo, Hilda smirked. Bite me, fat ass. I've only got a taste for my green bean here, Hilda retorted, pulling Izuku into a one-armed hug, squeezing him up to her softness. A growing group of friends was soon joined by Ijiru, Fumikage, Kyoyuka, and Shaoji. Fumikage himself was quite pleased that the others indulged his Chunobiyu nature as he also introduced them to his sentient quirk. So what do you think they'll have us do tomorrow? Ijiru asked. That's when the real battle begins. Knowing UA it will likely be a mock battle, Fumikage suggested, but with live targets instead of the robots we had to face in the entrance exam. It must have been very fun for you, Penny said. I got in via the recommendation exam myself. Well, you've got quite the impressive quirk for it, Kyoyuka noted. I don't think I've ever seen a cyborg quirk like yours. Yes, a cyborg quirk, Penny nervously said, a small hiccup escaping her throat as Benio also looked a bit nervous. Izuku smiled. All in all, he was glad to have so many new friends now, and he honestly felt glad that Katsuki had mellowed out from his old self thanks to Kirby's influence. Tomorrow was certainly going to be exciting. So, I hear Shota hasn't expelled anyone yet. Nimuri Kayama Aka, the 18-plus heroine, Midnight said as she walked with Captain Falcon to work at UA. Apparently he sees a lot of potential in his class this year. But I hope those kids are ready for the real deal today, Falcon said before noticing something. Say, whatever happened with that case you were on? The one involving that young runaway. From what Intel told me, it's a girl with a blood-based quirk. I suggested Vlad King take the case instead due to his quirk. Captain Falcon nodded. A wise decision. Not one I could have made myself, either. Naturally, UA still offered general education classes, though, for the hero course, these classes were done during the morning. The subjects taught were somewhat normal, barring the fact that teachers were pro-heroes with their own unique ways of teaching the students. However, the final main class of the day was what the young heroes to be of Class 1 were truly waiting for. And sure enough, the waiting paid off as a bombastic voice echoed from behind the door. I am here. Izuku and Hilda smiled. He came, coming through the door like a normal person. All Might himself dramatically strutted inside, swinging the door open with his cape billowing in the wind. already decked out in his costume, specifically his Silver Age one. Naturally, almost everyone in class freaked out. I can't believe it. All Might's really here. Ijiru shouted excitedly. That costume is from the Silver Age, isn't it, Jiro? Suyu said, also excited despite her neutral-looking face. That's pretty retro. All Might marched into the classroom, having everyone's gaze on him. That's right, Zygotes. I am your Heroics 101 teacher, starting today. In this class, we'll be building up your foundations through various trials. It'll be the most important class in your curriculum, as well as having the most units in your courses. This is gonna be fun, Ben smirked, his glasses glinting. Now I know this class is a serious one, but there is one fun aspect of it that I know you're all looking forward to. All Might said as he dramatically pointed at the wall. Behold, the walls suddenly began shifting before shelves came out with suitcases in them, each one labeled with a student number. Our hero costumes. The class cheered as one. Your costumes that have been created in accordance with the Quirk registry and the special forms you all filled out before school started, along with any details you wanted. All Might said. While not the most important aspect of a hero, looking good for the crowd is not something that should be underestimated. Recognition is important because when you stick out in the minds of the people, you give them hope every time you appear on the scene. Heck yeah, Hilda and Kirby cheered. Excuse me, Mr. All Might, but what will we be doing for our first Heroics 101 class? Penny asked politely, raising her hand. I'm glad you asked that, young Polandina, because we're gonna be throwing you lot right into the thick of it. All Might declared as he whipped out a piece of white plastic with the words battle on it. We're doing combat training. Oh fuck the hell yes. Katsuki grinned wickedly, eager to fight. The students of Wanna had all gotten dressed into their costumes and walked out to Training Ground Beta, where All Might wanted them to gather for their class. The symbol of peace looked approvingly at many of the young heroes to be's costumes. Izuku wore a dark green headband and wore no shirt, only gloves, pants, and boots, all various shades of dark green, as well as a green sash around his waist. Atop his head was a straw hat with a green band just above the brim, around the center part. A cord was attached to the hat around his neck so he could easily shift his hat off his head to his back without much effort. Hey, you got Shank's hat, Hilda noted as she lumbered up beside Izuku. She wore her signature pink and white cap as well as a black waistcoat over her white top, which proudly let her belly out for all to see, as well as denim shorts with white tear details on them. She had black wristbands with a small pink stripe on both of them, as well as matching black ankle boots with pink laces and iron soles, and a pair of black socks underneath. What, you're dressing like a civvy? Benio joked as he came over. He wore black hooded robes over chainmail armor and a black mask with glowing eye lenses over his face. His gloves had clawed fingertips and his boots ended in curved points. I can say the same for dressing so edgy, Hilda retorted playfully. Hey, I like hoods and masks. It gives an air of mystery. Fumikage nodded in approval. Revelry in the dark. I for one think he looks very heroic, Penny noted as she walked up beside Benio. She wore an olive green German-style dress with a black hem that was striped with emerald green. The abdominal region was black with 4 golden buttons with matching buckles on her shoulder straps. She also wore an off-white blouse with puffy shoulders, frilled flared cuffs, and vertical black lining down the front center. She also had black metal leg pieces that ran up to her thighs, both having a green stripe that ran down the sides, with a large green circle at the top and a small one at the bottom, both outlined with gold. The knee pieces of her legs were heavily defined to look separate from the rest of the leg pieces. She also wore a pair of black low-heeled metal boots and a pair of black lacy cuffed gloves with golden stud detailing on the knuckle. Benio put his fist to the part of his mask where his mouth was and coughed into it, a red blush emitting from the cheek areas. Oh, now that's true love right there, Toru giggled, wearing a white top and shorts with a gray-blue hooded cape that ended in multiple ends. She also had light blue gloves decorated with pale pink lines and light brownish-gray lace-up shoes. Her costume was made with her DNA, allowing it to turn invisible along with her. Kirby giggled as she looked over Katsuki's grenade-shaped gauntlets. Glad you managed to get that grenade license, huh? The pink-haired girl said to her boyfriend. Kirby wore a red sleeveless hoodie with black decals and a pink undershirt underneath. She also wore black and red pants with a buckle holding it in place with a star. She also had white khaki pants and red and black boots. Katsuki grinned. The old man was able to call in a few favors. I'm not allowed to throw them and can only use them in conjunction with my quirk. But other than that, the Ministry of Defense saw no problem since I was able to prove I had the training for it. They say clothes make the hero. And you're certainly proving it today. From this point on, you are all heroes in training. All Might proudly said. Hee, I should have been more descriptive on what I wanted, Ochako said with a small blush. My suit ended up being a skin-tight suit. Izuku blushed brightly as he looked at Ochako's costume and how well it showed off her curves. Minoru just stared before giving a thumbs up and turning to nobody in particular. UA Heroics is the best. All Might clapped his hands to get his students' attention and was pleased to see them all turn attentively to him. All right, you zygotes. You all look really cool, but now it's time to talk about how the battle training will commence. The symbol of peace boomed. Right now we're in the urban simulation, which you should be familiar with. However, this environment is twofold. While the villain fights you see on the news take place outdoors, statistically speaking it's more common to have fights with villains indoors. Abandoned buildings, home invasions, backroom deals, banks or other robbery scenes, and even supervillain lairs. The truly intelligent criminals stay hidden in the shadows. So all of these buildings are not merely facsimiles but actual building simulations both inside and outside. Penny noted. That's correct, young Polandina. For this test, you will be separated into heroes and villains for 2-on-2 team indoor battles. Boy, I have a question. Katsuki began. How badly can we hurt the other team? You'll be allowed to cause injury with full contact, but under no circumstances are you allowed to deliberately kill your opponent, no matter which side you're placed on. All Might clarified. For the good guy team, the reason should be obvious. But in the case of the bad guy team, while it is true that in real life villains can and will try to kill their opponent regardless of age, allowing that sort of thing here would be a travesty on multiple levels. Is the bad guy team required to lose in this simulation? Momo asked. Not at all. The point of being placed on the bad guy team is to get into the mindset of a villain. If you understand how they would conduct an operation, then you can more easily outmaneuver them when facing the real deal. So both sides should strive for victory. The symbol of peace then took out a small booklet he had written himself to read off of. Anyway, here's how the scenario will go. The villains have hidden a nuclear weapon somewhere in their hideout. The heroes have to go in and dispose of it. The heroes will have a limited amount of time to either capture the villains or secure the weapon in order to win. As for securing, you merely need to be able to touch it for longer than 3 seconds. The villains, in order to win, must either secure the weapon until time runs out or capture the heroes. Kinda sounds like a James Bond film setup, Denki noted. You'd actually be right on that, young Kaminari. All Might laughed. But this sort of scenario is also quite common in our current society. Now then, we'll be assigning teams based on lots. He brought out a yellow lottery box and rummaged through it randomly. Izuku ended up finding himself paired with Minoru, who looked just as nervous as him, while Ochako was paired with Hilda. I think we'll get along just fine. Hilda smiled as she wrapped a chubby arm around the smaller girl, who blushed slightly at how soft her partner's body was. Team A, Izuku Midoriya and Minoru Mainta. Team B, Hilda Yasukani and Ochako Uraraka. Team C, Shoto Todoroki and Ijiru Kirishima. Team D, Benio Torkiroshi and Mizo Shaoji. Team E, Katsuki Bakugo and Tenya Ida. Team F, Yuuga Aoyama and Mina Ashido. Team G, Denki Kaminari and Kyouka Jiru. Team H, Kirby Sakurai and Momo Yaohirazu. Team I, Penny Polandina and Siro Hanta. Team J, Aojiro Meishurao and Toru Hagakure. Team K, Tsuyu Asui and Fumikage Takoyami. Team L, Kuji Kuda and Rikadu Sato. Well, guess we're partners, huh? Minoru nervously said as Izuku nodded. With all the teams decided, All Might then placed 5-lettered balls randomly into 2 more boxes for heroes and villains, then blindly picked one from each. First up, we have Team as the villains against Team C as the heroes. Izuku turned to see Shoto giving the most frigid glare in his direction while Ijiru simply smiled and waved at him. Yo, Midori bro. I can't wait to see just how manly you are. Sure thing, Kirishima, Izuku awkwardly said, frowning as Shoto continued glaring at him for a few moments before turning away. What even is Todoroki's problem? Now then, the villains will go into the building and have 5 minutes to plan out their defenses. After that, the hero team will enter and the game begins. Everybody else will be in the monitoring room to view how you do. Surveillance cameras will be everywhere to monitor your actions. Villain team, use this time to adopt a villainous mindset. This is a practical experience, so don't hold back. Go all out without fear of injury. Though I will stop it if things go too far. All Might said. Izuku and Minoru headed into the building they would be using. Izuku finding the fake bomb already placed for them as Minoru still looked nervous. Midoriya, what do you have planned? Minoru asked. I mean, you've got all those crazy powers, but Todoroki got in on recommendation. Getting in on recommendation doesn't automatically mean you're undefeatable, Mainta, Izuku said. Do you trust me? The grape-headed boy was confused. I mean, we've only known each other for a day, but sure. Izuku knelt down and whispered into the dwarfish boy's ear. Minoru nodded along, his eyes widening before a mischievous grin spread across his face. So, how should we approach Midoriya and Mainta? Ijiru asked Shoto as the 5-minute setup ended. Midoriya's got all those crazy powers and Mainta has those bouncy balls that come out of his head. It doesn't matter. Our victory was assured from the word go. Shoto said dismissively as he stepped inside and placed his hand on the wall, causing ice to spread across the entire building. Well, no wonder you're in on recommendation, Ijiru exclaimed. They should be stuck now, Shoto said. I'll capture the bomb while you stand guard in case one of them escapes. However, Shoto barely made it 2 steps before a fiery fist punched him across the face, sending him crashing into his own eyes. The heterochromatic boy groaned before looking up to see Izuku surrounded by flames by it. Sorry, Todoroki, but you're not gonna stop me with just a little ice. Shoto growled and prepared to send another ice wave at Izuku, only for his chest to open up a small compartment via the and Minoru to fly out, screaming bloody murder as he threw a dozen hairballs at Shoto, sticking to his hands, legs, and chest as he was pinned to his own ice, struggling to break free. Man, Midoriya had the perfect counter. So manly. Izuku grinned as he rushed forward, hardening his arms. Come on, let's settle this like real men. Izuku smiled, admiring Izuku's exuberance despite the odds being stacked against him, and turned off his flames as he ran forward and delivered a roundhouse kick to match the spiky-haired boy's hardened punch. Izuku's training under Rayleigh ultimately proved him superior, but Izuku proved himself to be quite sturdy, managing to keep going until Izuku was forced to knock him out with an encoded kick to the head. Man, you're so cool, Midoriya, Minoru said, stars in his eyes as Izuku grinned bashfully. Villain team wins. The next match was Hilda and Ochako as the heroes and Katsuki and Tenya as the villains. I never imagined I'd have to think about things from the other end, Tenya said, tapping on the weapon. Fake, of course. There's no way they'd let a real nuclear weapon in this school, especially since only Midoriya would survive the blast. Just be sure to keep focused, 4 eyes, and don't underestimate Stay Puffed. She's tougher than she looks. Well, considering how well she performed in the Quirk apprehension test yesterday, I'm inclined to believe you, Tenya said. I'll stay here and guard the bomb. What shall you do? Katsuki huffed. Obviously, I'm taking those two head-on. Down below, Hilda and Ochako had slipped inside. We'll case the first floor, then you check the windows above on each floor. I'll move up as you give the all-clear, Hilda said as Ochako smiled and gave a thumbs up. Got it. The gravity girl then frowned as she looked at Hilda's large fat frame. I gotta ask ... how are you able to do all those feats of strength looking like that? Hilda giggled. Hey, my quirk keeps me fit no matter how fat I get. I could be 1,000 pounds heavier and still be able to kick ass. I hope you don't actually think of doing that, Ochako said awkwardly with a blush. Hilda laughed playfully at Ochako's words before a sharp ringing went through her head, alerting her to incoming danger. Quickly, she grabbed Ochako, shielding her with her blubber as she jumped away to dodge an incoming explosion from Katsuki. From the monitoring room, All Might noticed this as did Izuku. That level of premonition, knowing where the threat came from mere seconds before the attack. There's no doubt about it. Young Yasukani has unlocked the quirk of the 4th holder of OFA. Katsuki tried another jab, only for Hilda to grab him by the wrist, and delivered a Japanese arm drag, throwing him to the ground. The explosive blonde groaned as he quickly spun back to his feet. How the hell did Tubby know what I was gonna do? Hilda had a better idea of what was going on. I can see Bakugo's moves before he makes them. Sense how he's going to attack. Is this what All Might told me about? In the middle of their 10-month training regimen, All Might had told Hilda about a special factor of OFA. It had piggybacked the quirks of its previous holders, allowing the successors to use them as well. Bakugo, where are you? Tenya called through Katsuki's earpiece. 2nd floor, I'm tied up with Yasukani. Roundface broke off, so keep an eye out and defend the weapon. Katsuki replied. I'll try to hold Puffball down here. If I get a chance, I'll hurry back up. Awa, you're scared of Whittle Almi, Hilda teased, wiggling her hips. What? Is there too much of me to go around? Don't patronize me, fat ass. Katsuki aimed a blast-powered kick to strike Hilda, who simply blocked before wrapping up the leg in the capture tape. This gave her the leverage she needed to get out of the way as Katsuki tried punching again, blasting the wall. I may have put on some pounds, but I'm still pretty light on my feet. Hilda winked. The two continued to dodge each other, playing a high-stakes game of cat and mouse. Hilda kept running and gunning, dodging Katsuki before ducking a haul, only to blindside him when he gave chase. Just gotta keep riling Bakugo up. That way it'll be easier for Uraraka to find the weapon, Hilda thought before giving a shoulder slam to Katsuki's midsection, sending him flying through one of the walls, which were hardened steel. Damn, that fat ass is trying to goad me, isn't she? Katsuki scowled internally as he picked himself up. All that blubber is just cover for pure muscle and she's got the endurance to match. He quickly ducked into a nearby room and made sure to contact Tenya on his earpiece. Oi, 4 eyes. Any sign of round face? Nothing yet. Do you need my help down there? No, Yasukani is throwing me for a loop right now and I don't know where the hell I am. How many windows are in the room you're in? Only 2, with 1 door. Keep checking the windows in case Roundface tries peeking in, Katsuki ordered. If you spot her, throw some shit at her to try and knock her to the ground, then rush down for the capture. The explosive blonde hung up on his partner as he looked at his grenade-shaped gauntlets. They were made to collect his nitroglycerin-esque sweat so that he could unleash massive explosions when he had enough. Still, I gotta control the explosive force. Don't want to end up killing that hippo ... even if it'll just burn off some of her fat, Katsuki thought. Meanwhile, Ochako had been sneaking back inside the building to check the floors manually. Having guessed that Tenya might peer out the windows, she was able to find the weapon, and was right behind Tenya, using a support pillar for cover. Okay, now what's my next move? Ada-kun might be too fast to try capturing, so maybe I should focus on securing the weapon. With Yasukani-chan keeping Bakugo tied up downstairs, I shouldn't have any distractions. She quickly hopped out as Tenya immediately noticed her. It seems you managed to find a way into my lair, hero, Tenya said, trying to get into the role of a villain. You'll find there's nothing in this room for you to use your quirk on. Ochako couldn't help but giggle at just how goofy Tenya was acting. But seeing him take a running stance, she quickly got prepared herself. Hilda looked around and then suddenly sensed something in the nearby hall. It was Katsuki, his gauntlets glowing. This is an all-or-nothing attack, Yasukani, Katsuki said. I'm all loaded up and ready to blow you away. Careful, sweet cheeks, Hilda smirked. You don't want to cause unnecessary collateral damage. I thought of that. And that's why I made different pins on my gauntlets to control different explosion settings. Katsuki smirked as a grenade pin flipped up on one of his gauntlets. This one will just condense it into a shockwave that'll blow your fat ass right out of this building. Hilda grinned and raised one foot up before slamming it down like a sumo wrestler, making a come-on gesture with her hand. Then you better hope you knock me off my feet, hun. Famous last words. Bakugo, I hope you have those explosions under control. If you cause any serious damage, I'm ending the match right here and now. All Might called over the intercoms. You see how tanked she is. She can handle it. Katsuki smirked. Yeah, All Might, I have it all under control. Hilda grinned. Katsuki then pulled the pin as Hilda closed her eyes and called upon as much power of OFA as she could muster. Bakugo's right about one thing. This is all or nothing. As the explosion headed her way, pink and white lightning sparked across Hilda's arm as she pulled it back and threw a mighty right straight. HOENN smash. The two shockwaves collided together, canceling each other out and shattering the nearby windows while cracking the ground around Katsuki and Hilda. The two braced themselves, but Hilda bent over and then launched herself like a cannonball at Katsuki, who barely had time to react before she headbutted him in the stomach, making him keel over. I may be big and beautiful, but I'm faster and stronger than I look, Hilda said as she took out her capture tape and wrapped it around Katsuki's arms, bounding them behind his back. Meanwhile, Tenya had been distracted enough by the explosion that Ochako was able to activate her quirk, removing her own gravity and leaping over Tenya. Knowing he'd never reach her, he raced over and grabbed the weapon instead. Your quirk's useless if you can't even touch anything. And I made sure there's nothing in this room to touch. Too bad you missed a spot. The second I set foot in this room, Ochako said as she landed on a wall and took off her helmet. There was one thing I was able to grab hold of to use against you. She threw the helmet, affected by her quirk, forcing Tenya to dodge around as Uraraka played pinball with her helmet as the ball and herself as the flipper. Tenya did his best to keep dodging, but then he felt another impact, one that caused one of the pillars to topple. Now's my chance, Ochako said, making one final kick before leaping over to the pillar and picking it up. You were clever in trying to limit my quirk, Ada, but you forgot that I'm not working alone. Surprise. Hilda grinned as she leaped through the window. Unbelievable. She must have struck the wall in such a way that it knocked loose one of the support pillars. Tenya realized. Home run comet. Ochako swung the pillar like a baseball bat. The force of the swing sent debris flying at Tenya. He put up his arms for defense, but that only let Ochako leap past him and grab the weapon. Safe. NOOO. The weapon. Hero Team WIIINS. All Might dramatically announced over the comms. Man, first Midoriya and now Yasukani. Zero said in exasperation. We have so many powerhouses in this class that it's not even funny. Hilda, Ochako, Katsuki, and Tenya returned to the waiting room, Kirby running over to give her boyfriend a hug and tell him that he did a good job. It was difficult grading this particular matchup. For the most part, the title of MVP swung between young Uraraka and young. Ultimately, the MVP award goes to Uraraka for the clever use of her costume to take full advantage of her quirk when all other options were removed from her. That sort of critical thinking on the fly is crucial to becoming a hero. All Might said. Why not Yasukani or Bakugo? Tenya asked. Both of them seemed equally suited to the title. They both took their assigned roles seriously. That's true, All Might said. However, I did have to dock some points for a crucial factor. Can anyone take a guess what that was? I believe I know. It's because of the damage done to the testing site, Momo said. Heroes should always try to minimize collateral damage during a raid. And for villains, it's impractical to do anything that might comprise their hideout, especially if they're holding a nuclear weapon. Comparatively, Both Ida and Uraraka planned their battle out much better. I noticed that Uraraka deliberately aimed her final attack so that it would only target Ida, while minimizing the risk of prematurely setting off the weapon, under the hypothetical that it could go off if struck. Well, Hilda kinda talked to me about the potential scenarios, Achako bashfully said, rubbing the back of her head. Young Yasukani is quite smart despite her carefree and laid-back nature, All Might silently noted, and young Yaoyorozu is quite intelligent to have noticed all that. One should always start with the basics and devote themselves wholeheartedly to learning. That's the only real way to become a top hero, Momo recited. Katsuki just laughed mockingly. That's how you can become a hero. But you don't get to the top by going beyond the basics, gaining the trust of the people, and showing victory overall even when you yourself lose. That's what the motto of this school means. Go beyond, plus ultra. Keep to just the basics, wreck girl. And you'll only be a second-rate hero who barely makes the top 100. Momo was flabbergasted. Second-rate. Young Bakugo is right, All Might said. The basics will certainly take you far, but if you hope to become a top hero, you must strive for far more. That's what UAS teaching is all about. With that said, let's move on to the next confrontation. For the next fight, Ben and Shaoji were acting as the heroes while Aojiro and Toru were the villains. Toru immediately used her quirk, turning completely transparent, her costume reacting and doing the same. Okay, Meishurao, I'm gonna totally disappear and catch him by surprise. Okay, got it. I'll stay here and keep watch over the bomb. Down below, Shaoji used his quirk to form extra ears and take a listen through the halls. It wasn't just extra arms. His tentacles could form different exterior body parts, especially sensory organ. It was also how he normally talked, his tentacles forming additional mouths. One's in the hall on the 4th floor. The other should be in a room on the same level. Ben nodded. All right then, I'll take one and you take the other. I'll move to secure the weapon. Climb up on the exterior, it'll be safer that way. Ben entered the building while Shaoji formed extra hands and started climbing the building, his extra eyes letting him spot Hagakure even while she was invisible. Ben snapped his fingers and a dark red glow surrounded him as he turned invisible just like Toru. He then snuck through the building and chose to reappear right in front of Aojiro, who quickly swung his tail. However, Ben simply turned his arm into solid metal, blocking the tail before holding out his other hand and firing a burst of clay that pinned Aojiro to the wall and quickly hardened, leaving him stuck. Mad respect for trying to hit me head on. And don't worry about Hagakure, Shaoji's got her handled. Sure enough, Shaoji had already zeroed in on Toru and apprehended her. With Aojiro detained, Ben secured the weapon. Man, that guy has some serious firepower at his disposal, Kirby said. Ice, fire, clay, turning invisible, metal. He's like the much better version of Todoroki. Shoto scowled upon hearing that but looked around, keeping a mask of cold indifference. Katsuki smirked at his girlfriend's words. Also helps that he doesn't have a self-righteous asshole behavior. He incapacitated one of the targets without comprising the weapon, Izuku noted, and made use of his teammate's skills to handle the other opponent. A very brilliant strategy. Honey beamed, though I never saw him at the recommendation exam. All Might chuckled. Young Tokuroshi was indeed offered a recommendation, but he turned it down. He wanted to feel like he earned his place at UA the old-fashioned way. The next match had Zero and Penny as the villains against Fumikage and Tsuyu. Zero's quirk, which manifested from his elbows, set up a defense perimeter as Penny watched him work. Friend Zero, do you mind if I hold your hand for a moment? Zero blushed. What for? It's part of my quirk, Penny said, a tiny hiccup escaping her mouth which went unnoticed by her partner. I can scan other people's quirks and assimilate their quirk factor to create new weapons and gadgets based on the quirk in question. I call it. Wow, that's a pretty cool quirk, Zero noted. What quirk did you scan to use super strength and jet boots back in the quirk apprehension test? Penny looked a bit awkward. Well, they were actually what I started out with when I first got my quirk. Alright, let's see it in action. Zero smiled as he held out his penny for hand, who took it as her eyes glowed a bright green, data lines seeming to run across it. Green veins of light raced up her hand briefly before disappearing just as soon as they appeared. Sensational. It was a success. Penny smiled before holding out her hands, which opened up slits in the palms that fired green and black fiber wire tape to further increase the defense perimeter. Oh yeah, Takoyami and Tsu are in for a big surprise when they get here. Zero grinned. After that was Kirby and Momo as the villains against Kyoyuka and Denki as the heroes. Momo started making use of her quirk, which allowed her to make various objects from her body by transmuting her lipids. Sakurai, I have to wonder about your quirk. You're able to consume just about anything without any detrimental effect on your person. And on top of that, depending on what you eat, you gain a unique transformation with its own set of powers. Kirby grinned. Well, the name of my quirk is, it not only gives me a powerful suction breath, but I also have a bottomless stomach that's also an entirely separate dimension of reality. I can still digest food like a normal person, though. And the transformation aspect? Momo asked. Oh, that's my. Kirby beamed. Depending on what I eat, I gain a cool transformation with its own unique power set. If I take too much damage or decide I don't want it anymore, I transform. I see. That's a very versatile and powerful quirk indeed, Momo said. But, about you and Bakugo, how did you end up together? You're complete polar opposites. Oh, it's a long, complicated, and hilarious story. Kirby laughed. I'll tell you about it some other time. The final matchup had Rikadu and Kuji as the villains, and Yuuga and Mina as the heroes. Yuuga got annoyed when Mina wound up accidentally splashing some of her acid on his cape. Sorry. The pink-skinned girl apologized sheepishly. And that's a wrap. All Might declared after the final debriefing. Superb work today, everybody. And we didn't have any major injuries. That's what all heroes should strive for. You should be proud of your work today. It's nice to hear encouraging words after Aizawa-sensei, Tsuyu noted. He was kind of a buzzkill, preaching to the choir on that one, young Asui. All Might chuckled with a shake of his head. Still, I'm happy to bring such staggering positivity to my alma mater. Meanwhile, Aizawa was hanging out in the teacher's lounge when a dimensional portal opened up and Blast, the leader of the S-Rankers and one of the very few people who could match All Might in power, stepped out. What brings you here? Aizawa tiredly asked. I heard from the grapevine that Toshi went all out with the initial hero training, Blast chuckled. Honestly, you could learn something from him, Shota. You and he may have different ideas on how to coach those kids, but he does realize that they need to be pushed to their limits. It was the same with his teacher, Nimbus. Aizawa nodded. Yeah, Nana Shimura. No one knows what happened to her. One day they just found her dead from fighting an unknown villain. Blast's normally friendly and playful face became more solemn. He was actually one of All Might's classmates back in their days at UA, and he was there to see the tragic fate of the gallant hero, Nimbus. I know what happened to her. She lost to the same villain All Might would eventually triumph over. A villain so dangerous and evil that the world would rather forget all about him. You look like you're thinking about something, Aizawa noted. Something to do with All Might. You did go to the same class together, didn't you? Blast shrugged. Hey, I'm not one to give away secrets. After the battle training, Izuku, Hilda, Katsuki, Tenya, Ben, Penny, and Kirby all found themselves as the stars of their class after the battle training. The only one who didn't offer much praise was Shoto, and that was clearly because of the envy toward them and how most of them didn't need recommendations. When we saw how you conducted your own battles, Fumikage said, the rest of us decided we couldn't hold back. We made sure to take the lessons you showed to heart during our own training. Hilda smiled as she helped herself to some donuts she had been saving, but she had a contemplative look on her chubby but gorgeous face as Izuku noticed his best friend's silence. Hilda-chan, what's wrong? You think we can trust them? I mean, not even 2 days into UA and we've already made so many friends. Hilda said, is it a good idea to tell them the secret? Izuku gave it some thought. Just a few for right now. And I think I know who. You were given a second quirk. That was Tenya, Ochako, and Kirby's reaction when Izuku and Hilda told them about OFA. Katsuki was also there and his eyes were wide with disbelief, and yet at the same time, he was also thinking it made perfect sense. And All Might's no less. Tenya said, visibly shaking. He must have absolute faith in your potential. Apparently this quirk has passed hands several times and picked up several additional quirks along the way, Hilda said. During the battle trial, I unlocked one of them, I think it was called. From what All Might has told us, there are 6 more quirks piggybacking off of OFA as well, Izuku added. How has no one learned of this? Tenya asked. Does anyone else know? A secret like that? I think the number of people who know would be very small indeed. Ochako noted. Yeah, and that's not even getting to my secret. Kirby laughed. Katsuki sucked his teeth. Kirby, hey, if they trust us with their secret, I can trust them with mine. Kirby smiled reassuringly at her boyfriend. You see, despite all those cool powers I have, I don't have a quirk. Because I'm not human. Yup, I'm an alien from planet Popstar. A few of my friends from there are also here. Some of them are even pro-heroes. Kirby beamed. Whoa, that's so cool. Ochako gushed, stars in her eyes. I always knew aliens were real. Me too, Hilda said. Please tell us everything you're comfortable sharing. And I guess I have a secret too. Izuku admitted. I don't have a quirk either. I ate this weird fruit and well, now I'm a giant Swiss Army knife of superpowers. Such amazing secrets, Tenya muttered, trying to take it all in. Though I think I can understand why they are being kept from the general public. If any villains heard of these, they'd do anything to get their hands on them. Meanwhile, in a dimly lit bar, a young man with pale dried skin and preserved pale gray hands clinging to parts of his body set down a newspaper. Can you believe this shit? It says he's a teacher now. He looked up to a figure that seemed to be made of purple smoke, though still with a humanoid shape and wearing a bartender's uniform. Hey, here's a question. What do you think would happen when the mighty symbol of peace is permanently banned from the server? A sinister laugh came from nearby, and the man turned to 8 shadowy figures standing there. You are so naive, child. I don't know why our brother spent so much investment on you. When the symbol of peace is killed, another rises to take his place. Father taught us this, that good will never stop fighting, because otherwise, evil would have already won. One of the shadows said, a large sinister smile on his face while clutching chains in his hands. But our foolish brother, your precious sensei, has yet to understand this fundamental fact of our society. The sole female member of the 8 figures said, holding an ornate trident, for darkness to continue thriving. A tall armored figure said sagely with his arms folded, the light must continue to shine. Lady Shibabawa was an old oracle whose quirk allowed her to see visions of the future. The outcome was not set in stone, so she could give advice to those who wished to change an unfavorable fate. She worked with the Hero Committee, providing valuable information for raids, attacks, and other incidents so that the heroes and other law officials would be better prepared for them. Has it been leaked that All Might is now a teacher at the academy? Sitch, a board member of the Hero Committee, nodded his head. Yes, I believe so. It was quite surprising for all of us when he decided to become a teacher this year. Someone's going to break into UA using the cover of the media debacle. Their goal is to try and kill All Might, Shibabawa said. There won't be any way to stop him from going. Not if he learns his students are in danger. But we might be able to catch these villains off guard if he's not there when they first show up. Sitch nodded. I'll call up Child Emperor. His older sister goes to that school and it'll be good for him to provide some aid in preparing for what's to come. In just one day, the news about All Might teaching at UA High quickly spread to everyone, causing reporters to quickly gather at UA for 2 days straight. The students of Class 1 were learning really quickly why Aizawa hated the media. Paparazzi tended to be pushy when there was something they really wanted to know. What's it like being taught by All Might himself? Asked one of the reporters eagerly. I got nothing to say to you parasites, Ben said before snapping his fingers as he turned himself and his classmates invisible, allowing them to sneak into school unimpeded. One female reporter tried to pursue Aizawa to get an interview with him, only to be blocked off by the security gate at the school's entrance, which kept out those who didn't have a school ID. How does All Might get anything done with reporters hounding him all the time? Aizawa wondered. It's even worse now that the nation knows Toshi's teaching here at UA, Captain Falcon noted. Now everyone wants to get their hands on All Might. He got a call on his smartphone. After a few minutes of talking, he hung up and turned to Aizawa with a serious expression. And I do mean everyone. We need to call in an emergency teachers meeting. Aizawa walked into his class to see all his students already sitting down and waiting. I reviewed the footage of your combat training yesterday. You won't hear me say this often, but I was very impressed. Most of you performed decently and you listened to instructions from your teammates without issue. However, his eyes landed on the sole exception to his praise, Shoto. Todoroki, you could have easily gone with more success if you worked together with Kirishima. Going the lone wolf path isn't going to cut it. Also, I know about your quirk and you better be more willing to take things seriously instead of expecting everyone to coddle you. Shoto scowled bitterly at his teacher, who remained indifferent as he returned his attention to the rest of his class. Now then, on to homeroom business. Sorry for this sudden announcement, but today, you'll be picking a class president. The class breathed a sigh of relief, grateful that it was just normal school stuff. However, that's when the class broke out into chaos, as each student wanted to be picked. In a normal school, being the class rep simply means having extra work. But in UAS Hero course, being a class rep could get a student noticed by the various hero agencies. After all, it was proof that a hero in training could lead a team like a real pro. Oi, you knuckleheads need someone like me to keep you all in line. Katsuki barked. Me. Mina waved her arms excitedly. The position exists for moi, Yuuga declared. My first decree should be to allow all the girls to show some extra thigh. Minoru yelled, only to be hit upside the head with Kaiuka's shoe. Silence, everyone, Tenya declared with his hand raised high, causing the students to turn toward him. The class rep must be capable of leading others, and that's not something just anyone can do. It's first important to have the trust of every student in the classroom. Ada, you can put your hand down now. You don't have to be shy about admitting being excited. Hilda playfully smirked as Tenya coughed, lowering his hand and nodding apologetically. This is just a classroom, not Congress, Denki said. He does have the right idea, though, Penny pointed out. The best way to determine who has the greatest trust of the class is democratically. I believe we should hold an election. We've only known each other for a few days, at least for most of us. That isn't enough to build up trust, Suyu commented, putting her finger on her cheek. Plus, everyone will just vote for themselves, Ijiro added. Tenya sighed. There are some that will, and yes, that would include myself. But that just means that those who receive multiple votes must truly hold the respect and trust of their fellow students. Since you seem to have a system in place, Aizawa said, I have a teacher's meeting to get to. Let me know when I get back who you settled on. He headed out the door, leaving some of the students wondering why the sudden meeting. The electoral votes were tallied and posted on the board for everyone to see. Izuku had 5 votes while Momo had 3. How did I get the most votes? Izuku cried in disbelief. Hilda playfully winked at her best friend, who flustered as his cheeks glowed bright red. Ochako whistled innocently while Tenya sighed, seeing he only got 2 votes. I'm amazed I even got any votes at all. I know most of the class only sees me as being too uptight. I honestly thought you would have made a great class rep. Ada, Izuku admitted. Aizawa came back and saw the results. Alright, so the class rep is Midoriya, with Yaoyorozu as his deputy. Hey, Aizawa-sensei. What was the big meeting for? Kirby asked. It's private. Let me just tell you that we may have extra security for the coming days. Later the class was in Lunch Rush's eatery, basically the school cafeteria. Lunch Rush was another hero working at the school who used his quirk to cook up all sorts of foods from every corner of the world. This made him very popular with the students, and hardly any student from either the hero, support, general ed, or business courses sought lunch elsewhere. I thought it would be just us voting for you, Deku, Ochako said, as she and the other friends sat down for their food. Yeah, Izuku had my vote from the beginning, Hilda said, helping herself to a massive amount of food. He's a genius with or without powers. I didn't realize so many in the class trusted me specifically, Izuku admitted, blushing awkwardly. Though I am quite curious why Ida didn't vote for himself, Penny noted. He seemed like he really wanted the job. Wanting a job and being suited to it are 2 different things, Tenya pointed out. Besides, in terms of leading others, I still have much to learn compared to my brother Tensei. Oh wow, the turbo hero, Ingenium. Hilda asked as she finished chewing some yakiniku beef. I had a hunch you were related to him, but still. The Ida family is practically a hero business, Ochako said before smirking. That means you're rich, aren't you, Ida? Tenya slumped. Another reason I didn't vote for myself. I was afraid people would treat me differently if they knew I came from money. I mean, Yaoyorozu is quite wealthy, isn't she? Kirby pointed out, helping herself to a large plate of sweets and other delicious foods. And so is Two-Face. He's the son of the number 2 hero Endeavor, Katsuki added. As the group of friends continued talking, Hilda paused in the middle of a triple deluxe burger to put a hand to her head, feeling pounding like a jackhammer. Not even a few seconds later, an alarm rang throughout the school. Warning, Level 3 security breach. All students please evacuate the building in an orderly fashion. What's a Level 3 security breach? Tenya promptly asked an upperclassman that stood up. It means someone infiltrated onto the grounds. The upperclassman yelled. In my 3 years here, this has never happened before. We have to get out of here. The others quickly stood up, but not before Kirby inhaled the rest of her lunch. However, problems began to arise when they tried to get out. All the students were trying to get out at the same time, mobbing the exit and making it difficult for everybody within. Damn it, now the fucking exits are gonna be congested. Katsuki cursed. Anytime someone says evacuate in an orderly fashion, everyone just hears evacuate and runs like a bunch of headless chickens. As expected of UA students, they are quick to react in a crisis. Tenya grunted as he was shoved against a window, noticing something that caught his eye. Wait, it's only the press from outside. Penny activated her jet boots to fly above the stampeding crowd, Ben joining her by forming a tornado of vapor around his lower half. Looks like Aizawa-sensei and Present Mike are trying to keep the press away from All Might, Ben noted. Izuku used the to stretch his arms and catapult himself to just above the exit. He then used the to play a rhythmic melody to get everyone's attention. Everyone, there's no need to panic. It's just the press trying to get an unsanctioned interview, Izuku cried, getting everyone's attention. This school is protected by some of the top heroes in the nation, and we're supposed to be following their example. So we shouldn't just be rushing out all once in a mob. Most likely someone on the press pool used a quirk to bypass the walls, so there's nothing dangerous going on. People closest to the window looked out before yelling out that it really was just the press. The students began to calm down as the police also arrived to drive the press away. Present Mike was cheering on the police, yelling goodbye, bad mass media. Are you all right, friend Hilda? Penny asked, noticing Hilda's look of concern. My new went off just before the alarm. While I'm sure this security breach really is just what it appears, I somehow wonder if some villain wasn't behind it, trying to cause a scene. Izuku frowned and nodded. His observation haki had also kicked in, having sensed a malevolent presence just before the alarms kicked in. The presence was gone now, but it still lingered in his mind. So our first item is to determine who the other class officers will be, Izuku said after everyone got back to class, such as who's going to take care of the class pet, who'll do the announcements in class, secretary, and who the health committee rep will be. All right, before we begin any debate, Momo began. I propose that we don't let Minda be the health committee rep. Agreed, stated all the girls at once. Oh come on, I haven't even said anything. Minoru cried out. No offense, buddy, but we don't trust you with your raging hormones, Denki said as Minoru slumped, banging his head against his desk in despair. Alright, let's begin choosing the reps, Izuku said, clapping his hands to get their attention. Who wants to be the secretary then? We need someone with fast and good handwriting for that. In the end, Tenya was the one best suitable for such a role, which he embraced passionately. Kuji, who loved animals, quickly volunteered to be the one to take care of the class pet, with Kirby offering to help. Tayuka became the announcer, and the health committee rep was given to Penny, who showed an impressive level of medical intuition. All in all, Class 1 was quickly coming together as a well-oiled machine, Aizawa watching his students collaborating together from his sleeping bag and nodding in approval. Meanwhile, Nedzu was examining the corroded barrier at the school gate alongside Midnight, Recovery Girl, and Captain Falcon. It's been completely destroyed, Midnight muttered worriedly. No reporter could have done this, Captain Falcon added. The sound of a whirlybird was heard as everyone looked up to see Child Emperor of the S-Rankers coming down, his backpack protruding a propeller that helped him glide safely down. He was quirkless but made up for the deficit with his sheer intellect, which got him an apprenticeship under Dr. Bofoy Aka Metal Knight, who brought him into the S-Rankers soon after. Hope I'm not too late, the youngest of the S-Rankers said. What's the damage? See for yourself, dearie, Recovery Girl said, gesturing to the corroded barrier. Noticing this, Child Emperor went over to the remains and took out a special scanning device from his barrier, taking a pinch of the rubble between his fingers and putting it in the device to scan it. Someone used an acceleration of natural decomposition to break down the barrier. Considering the barrier is made from a combination of tungsten and telekill alloy provided by the SCP Foundation, it must be incredibly powerful. Lady Shibabawa and Agent Sich warned us about this, Midnight said. The question is just who instigated this whole thing, Nedzu murmured. And did they slip in to get something? Or did they just want to declare war? Meanwhile, Mount Lady, Kamui Woods, and the S-Ranker member Drive Knight were taking on a hulking villain named Habit Headgear. The brute was large and had used his quirk to hold a family hostage, threatening to kill them if he was chased. However, Drive Knight had done some significant damage to him beforehand with his quirk, which allowed him to summon a special shape-changing box that allowed him to transform his body in a variety of ways. Habit Headgear had tried to strike Drive Knight, only for the cyborg-esque hero to violently disable his arm with his silver transformation, which turned his right arm into a high-frequency electric sword, which he controlled to only sever the nerves on the villain's arm. The villain backed up a little, trying to find an opening to escape, only for a mighty heel to slam into his head, very nearly shattering his skull in the process as he let go of the family he was holding. Heaven kick of pain. Flipping through the air and landing gracefully on her feet was Tsunade, who had arrived on the scene as fast as she could, and she wasn't alone, either. Missouri Smash. All Might came flying it, delivering a hard chop to the back of Habit Headgear's large head, knocking him to the ground. This allowed Drive Knight to transform his shape-changing box into an Iron Maiden-like device that clamped down on the villain, crushing him completely. Did you really have to do that? Mount Lady nervously asked. Villains who threaten innocent families do not deserve to live, Drive Knight simply said as he opened up the Iron Maiden device to reveal Habit Headgear's crushed and near-dead body, laying in a growing pool of blood. After making sure everyone was all right, All Might and Tsunade headed off. Not how I wanted to spend our date together, All Might admitted. We both know you could never ignore someone in need, Tsunade assured him. But is it just me, or are you slowing down? All Might sighed. It's not just you. Now that I've passed OFA to young Yasukani, I'm only running by on fumes. Soon, I'll be back to being quirkless. Luckily, I at least have the piggyback quirks from my predecessors kept, perhaps as a means of keeping a token of my duty in carrying the legacy. Let's just hope we're ready for tomorrow. Tsunade frowned. I have a feeling things are gonna get ugly. The next day after the incident with the press, Aizawa was instructing the class. For today's training, you'll be having 4 teachers. There's me, your gym teacher Captain Falcon, Rescue Trainer 13, and General Ed teacher Sabrina. In addition, you'll get your first chance to work with a pro hero. We'll be having Sister Sage here to help with training. Sabrina. Oh, Sabrina. Hilda perked up in recognition. I always wondered how she was doing these days. Sensei, what are we doing? Zero asked. From disasters, shipwrecks, and everything between. We'll be doing rescue training, Aizawa said as he presented a card with rescue printed on it. The students glanced at each other in nervousness or excitement, their chattering starting to grow until their teacher put a stop to that. You can decide whether or not to put on your hero costume or your PE clothes, as some costumes may not be suitable for such training or will limit you. The training shall take place off campus, so we'll be taking a bus. Get changing and meet outside. This is where things get real. Kirby cheered. Rescue work is the most important part of being a hero. Penny nodded. Indeed, I will try to perform adequately to this school's standards. Still, I'm a little worried. Why are so many pro heroes looking after us in this training? Izuku pondered. In the end, everyone donned their hero costumes, as they wanted to use this training to see what limitations that had been imposed on them without their notice. I don't have much to worry about. My costume lets my money maker loose, Hilda said, rubbing her belly. That's because you're basically wearing your regular clothes, Izuku said as Hilda smirked. Why change what's already perfect? As everyone waited on the bus, Izuku noticed Tsuyu turning to him. Hey Midoriya, I'm real curious about something. I've noticed during hero training that you sometimes turn into elements to fly around and stuff. But there are times you use the elements to let attacks go right through you and other times you either dodge or block normally. Why is that? Izuku hummed. Well, Rayleigh-sensei taught me that I shouldn't use one devil fruit as a crutch. My power has 3 categories, Paramecia, Zoan, and Loja. I'm able to use one devil fruit of each category at a time, so say I turn into a dinosaur, I can still also stretch like rubber and turn into fire. Man, your quirk has so many applications, it's crazy. Ijiru noted. All I can really do is harden my body. Oh, come on, Kirishima. Your power is straightforward and easy to work with. Kirby reassured. You'll make an awesome hero. Simple often tends to be the most versatile of them all, Ben added with a nod of his head. And hey, some of us know armament hacking. If you add that to your repertoire, you'll be just as flashy as anybody else. Hilda grinned. Everyone arrived at their destination, gazing in awe at the dome-shaped building in front of them. Well, what is this? An amusement park? Hilda asked. Are we at Universal Studios Japan? Everyone, I have been waiting for you. Everyone looked to see Tsunade and Captain Falcon there, along with a woman in a bulky space suit with metal caps for fingers and a young woman with small purple eyes and short blue hair around shoulder blade length, wearing a tight-fitting spaghetti-strap pink crop top that showed her midriff and white slim-fit pants attached with a black belt around her waist and pink slip-on shoes. She also wore green and black bracelets on her wrists. What was most eye-catching about her was that she was fat. About as fat as Hilda was, but no less gorgeous. Hilda, man, you went for the Fat Gums super diet too, huh? The woman, Sabrina, laughed as she sauntered over to Hilda, bumping bellies with her. Big sis Sabrina, glad to see I'm not the only one who thinks bigger is better. Achako was gushing over the woman in the space suit. Oh my gosh, Space Hero 13. She's my favorite hero. Hey, Squirt, surprised to see me. Tsunade chuckled as she ruffled Izuku's hair, making him blush. Why yeah, I guess since All Might's working at UA, you gotta keep a close eye on him. Believe me, you have no idea. They were swiftly led into the domed building to see so many variations of rescue training areas, all built to simulate real-time disasters. It looks like Universal Studio Japan, Ijiru said. Right, Hilda guffawed. Flood zone, landslide, fire, etc. 13 stated proudly. Every natural disaster you could imagine, I've created a simulation of it. I built this facility myself. I call this place the Unseen Simulation Joint, otherwise known as USJ. That's the same initials, most of the students thought. Here, you kids take these earpieces for emergency communication, Captain Falcon said as he handed each of the students earpieces. 13 began an explanation, starting with her quirk and how dangerous it could be, as well as the trials the teachers went through in their times as students and how they had learned to expand on what they had. This class will show you a new perspective. You will learn to utilize your quirks to save lives. You all have powers that are not meant to harm others, but to protect and save. I hope that after this day, you will leave with the understanding that you are all meant to help people. Thank you for listening. As 13 bowed, the students clapped at her speech. Well said, Anin. Sabrina winked before slapping her belly loudly to get everyone's attention. Okay, kids, time to. She was interrupted when an electrical current ran through the lights, making them dim. Izuku felt his observation haki go on high alert as Hilda winced, rubbing her scalp as drilled into her skull violently. Suddenly, a dark purple rift appeared in front of the fountain that was in the middle of the whole dome. The rift suddenly expanded, the purple mist spreading wide. As the pro-heroes directed their attention to it, out came a hand, followed by a face with a severed hand on it, and several more unsavory individuals following behind. I get the feeling this isn't part of the training, Tenya wearily muttered. This was supposed to be rescue training, but those people don't look like they need rescuing. Everyone stay back, Aizawa warned, startling the students. Those are actual villains. Seeing their protective nature, the students couldn't help but obey as villains began to flood the area from the mist. The most prominent ones were the man with multiple severed fake hands all around his body and face, the giant humanoid with its brain clearly visible, and the purple mist that slowly reformed into a human figure. I see Sabrina, 13, Captain Falcon, Eraserhead, and Sister Sage, but no sign of All Might. The schedule we obtained said he was supposed to be teaching here, the purple mist man noted with a sophisticated voice. That guy's chakra. Tsunade muttered, staring at the man covered in severed hands. It's familiar. You were the one who destroyed the gate at UA, weren't you? Just who the hell do you think you are? I just go by the name given to me by my sensei, Tamura Shigaraki. The man said with a young raspy voice. Who I was before no longer matters. What does is that we came here specifically to kill the great symbol of peace. Sabrina frowned as she stared at the hulking abomination with the villains, its eyes unfocused and its stance slouched as if waiting to be given the order to pounce on unsuspecting prey. I can sense that thing's energy. It's all wrong. Indeed. I'm scanning it now, Penny said, her eyes glowing brightly. Its genetic code is all scrambled up. It used to be human, but there's nothing human about it anymore. Oh, you don't have to worry about this big guy. We're saving him for the final boss, Tamura assured. It's the rest of our friends you have to worry about. They came all this way to see the symbol of peace die, and they're not afraid to kill a few stupid kids to bring him running. Aizawa stepped forward, pulling his special goggles over his eyes. You've got 5 pro heroes standing in the way of that, and most of your friends look like low-level fodder at best. This is bad, Ben muttered as he, Izuku, Hilda, Penny, and Kirby all stood close together. I never thought I'd see actual villains. The common crooks here look easy to deal with. But those 3 guys, the hand guy, the mist guy, and that monster. I don't like the aura they're giving off, Hilda noted. Izuku never thought he would see pure evil staring at him until he had graduated. Tamura, the portal villain, and whatever the creature was were generating a threatening aura detected by his observation hack. Something's wrong. The alarms aren't going off, Momo realized. Shoto scowled. It must be a masking quirk. One of the villains is making the whole group unseen to the security network. They deliberately chose this isolated facility at a time when a class was being taught. They may be fools for trespassing here, but they thought this through, so they're still intelligent fools. How's the signal working? 13 asked. We only have internal communications, Sabrina said. We need to find a way to send help to the outside. Kaminari, try boosting the signal. You got it, Denki said as he tried channeling his quirk through his radio headset, only to cry in pain when all he got was screeching feedback. We need to buy time until help can arrive, Aizawa said before turning to 13. 13, you and Sabrina begin evacuation. The rest of us will handle these low lives. Aizawa, Captain Falcon, and Tsunade all leaped down the stairs in unison. One villain with gun barrels for fingers smirked as he was joined by a heavyset patchwork villain with a bull helmet and a female villain with metal ropes for hair. Shooting squad, let's go. Aizawa scoffed as he activated, disabling the villains' quirks as they were thrown off guard. Tsunade delivered a heaven kick of pain to the big guy's head, cracking his bull helmet and sending him to the floor, while Captain Falcon delivered a knee strike to the female's face, sending her flying back as Aizawa disabled the gun finger guy with his capture scarf. Dumbass, that's Eraserhead. He can cancel quirks out just by looking at you, a nearby villain shouted. And Sister Sage, despite her quirk being a healing type, can channel it into herself to increase her strength. And Captain Falcon can hit you fast and hard at the same time. You got that right. We're covering each other's bases. Captain Falcon grinned as flames seemed to emit off him. Now show me your moves. Well, that's the sad part about PvP. Numbers don't matter if your smaller party can cover a wide range of weaknesses. Tamura muttered as he watched his henchmen getting thrown around like ragdolls before looking up the stairs. But what are 13 and Sabrina doing? The Mist Man looked up as well. It looks like they are trying to evacuate the students. Time for Plan B, it seems. 13 and Sabrina were quickly leading the classes toward the exit when the Mist Man suddenly appeared in front of them all, blocking the exit. I can't allow you all to leave so easily, he said. Forgive the impoliteness. My name is Kurogiri and we are the League of Villains. Never heard of ya, Sabrina retorted. I'll make things quick and efficient. We decided to invite ourselves into your little haven of justice. A fitting place for All Might, the symbol of peace, to breathe his last, don't you think? You really think you can kill the symbol of peace so easily? Izuku asked. Do you even realize what the symbol of peace truly is? I don't think you do, since you're only talking about killing All Might. Kurogiri merely hummed. Speaking of which, I believe he was supposed to be here. Sabrina smirked. You're working off an outdated schedule. All Might was selected as a general heroics teacher, not rescue training. Kurogiri processed Sabrina's words. He noted she wasn't a rescue hero and yet here she was. Suddenly, it all came to him as his ethereal yellow eyes widened in realization. Impossible. You must have somehow known we were coming. Oi, Deku, should we rush him? Tatsuki asked. Izuku shook his head. He doesn't look like he has a physical form right now. Unless we can find a tangible core, we'd only be getting ourselves sent who knows where. Fortunately, 13 took the initiative, standing in front of her students protectively as she popped open the lids on her gloves, using her quirk. However, despite the powerful vortex, Kurogiri proved to be fast. It matters not in the end. I shall scatter you all to meet your doom. His body expanded to encompass the class. As he did, Izuku noticed a solid neck brace just under Kurogiri's eyes. Everyone else struggled to escape, with Tenya grabbing Ochako and Mina and running out of the mist, while Shaoji grabbed Rikadu, Iwuga, and Siro and anchored himself to the ground. The rest tried to stabilize themselves or dodge, but in the end were sucked into the portal. Everyone, Tenya shouted in worry. Ida, run for the exit. Let the other teachers know what's going on. Izuku called out before he was completely pulled in. Izuku soon found himself in the waters of the shipwreck zone. Unfortunately for him, that counted as being against his devil fruit weakness, as he began sinking like a stone, his body feeling several tons heavier as he struggled to even move. To make matters worse, he noticed a shark-esque villain swimming toward him, his jaws open wide. First catch of the die. Sorry kid, but you're chum. Suddenly, a big bulky cannonball slammed into the villain, knocking him off course as Izuku saw Hilda as well as Tsuyu. The two quickly grabbed him and pulled him to the surface, Tsuyu also bringing along Minoru with her tongue as they jumped onto the deck of the ship. Gee, thanks for the save. Izuku coughed out some stray water as Hilda helped him up and rubbed his fluffy bush of green hair. I think I saw Jesus ... Oh wow, he told me I need to reevaluate my life. Minoru muttered deliriously. As Minoru was set down, Tsuyu sighed as the four took a moment to cooperate. Man, this is turning into a terrible day of class. Was that guy serious about killing All Might, considering he wasn't afraid to send us to our supposed deaths? Yeah, I think he was very serious. Hilda groaned. Izuku worriedly put a finger to his chin and thought. They knew our whole schedule and had an idea of who was supposed to be here. While we were stuck in the cafeteria, they snuck in and stole school files. The teachers were too busy trying to keep the media off school grounds, yet they were able to plan for this situation. But if the school anticipated this, why not just cancel the training today? Tsuyu asked. Because then the enemy would remain unknown. Izuku explained. They took any and all steps they could to try and lure in these guys while still keeping us safe. Ah, I see. Hilda smiled. We weren't the bait, All Might was. Izuku nodded in affirmation. So long as this league of villains thought All Might was here, they'd come looking for him. And if they didn't find him, they'd try and make chaos to draw him in. But it's not like they can really kill All Might, Minoru pointed out, having managed to regain his bearings. I dunno. If the villains thought out their plan this much, then they had to have researched a method to try and kill All Might. Otherwise, they'd be throwing fodder at a brick wall and getting nothing done. Tsuyu noted. That big ugly creep next to the one calling himself Shigaraki. He said it was there specifically for All Might, only sending his rank and file to deal with the other heroes. Hilda added. We should let the others know. I think that's the reason Captain Falcon gave us these earpieces, just in case we got separated. Izuku said. Damn it, I can't believe we're seriously having our lives threatened right now. We weren't supposed to face actual villains until our second year. Minoru cried. I can't believe I'm gonna die a virgin and nobody will mourn me. Pull yourself together, you dumbass, Hilda said as she slapped Minoru across the face. We are not dying. We're gonna kick butt and we're gonna live. We might need to be careful though. I don't think that shark guy was the only villain in the water. Tsuyu warned. Everyone else looked over the railing to see several water-themed villains rushing at them. Hilda furrowed her brow as she tried to look over a possible way to get past the enemies, not noticing wisps of purple smoke emitting from her shoulders until Minoru pointed it out. Hey, Yasukani, is that smoke? Hilda perked up and looked at the smoke emitting from her body. She turned to Izuku, both of them realizing what this meant. The quirk of the sixth user of OFA. I think we can work this to our advantage. Hilda smirked, Izuku nodding in agreement. Back at UA, Toshinori was getting worried. They had a plan outlined by Lady Shibubawa's vision and some data plans drawn up by Child Emperor. But as the old saying goes, no plan survives first contact with the enemy. Really, Toshi, you must have faith in our students, especially young Midoriya, young Yasukani, young Sakurai, young Torkiroshi, and young Polendina, Nedzu said as he entered the room and sat on the couch. With their power sets, I'd be more concerned about any villain that tries to attack them. Of course, the rest of their class aren't slouches either. Yes, the likes of young Bakugo, young Todoroki, young Ida, and young Yaoyorozu have their own individual talents that can prove useful in a situation like this, Toshinori acknowledged. Nedzu nodded as he took a sip of tea before setting his cup down and turning to his old friend. Toshi, I should tell you. A lipid panel of young Yasukani's blood was performed. It seems as much more multifaceted than we initially believed. Toshinori was interested. What do you mean? Are you saying it does more than just keep her in perfect shape regardless of her weight and body shape? Yes, and the healing properties too. It all goes down to the genetic level, Nedzu revealed. Her very DNA repairs itself faster than the free radicals can damage it. Her immune system is supercharged, creating antibodies for any pathogen the second a new one enters her bloodstream. Cancer cells die off before they can fully gestate. To be frank, Toshi, you couldn't have picked a more perfect successor for OFA. Her quirk is designed to maintain a perfect state of health, which means she could handle any other quirk if she ever got a new one, Toshinori said before his eyes bulged in realization. She could very well unlock them all the various quirks piggybacking to OFA. Nedzu nodded. Indeed, Ms. Hilda Yasukani has the potential to fully awaken and master the true power of OFA. Back at the USJ, Izuku, Hilda, Tsuyu, and Minoru continued to observe the villains circling the boat. So how in the heck are we supposed to fight these guys? Minoru asked. None of the rank and file here would be a match for All Might, so we can reasonably assume they're not very powerful to begin with, only here as a distraction or to hold students hostage in various zones, Izuku noted. Hilda nodded. They likely learned what to expect in the USJ before coming. All the villains around us here are water-themed, perfect for the Shipwreck zone. But then again, Tsu is also well-suited to the water, which means the villains likely don't have any idea what our quirks are. That's true. If they knew what our quirks were, they would have sent you and Midoriya out of the USJ altogether so neither of you wouldn't be an issue. And they would have sent me into the conflagration zone. That Kurogiri guy was just tossing us around randomly, hoping whatever villains we ran into would finish us off. Wait, so you mean to tell me that they only made this plan for the sole purpose of killing All Might and only treating us as an afterthought? Minoru realized. That's stupid. How sloppy can people get? They went to all that trouble of figuring out our schedule and nothing else. Izuku nodded. That also explains why they haven't attacked us yet. For all they know, we're the strongest students in our class. But that also means they won't underestimate us just because we're kids. We need to come up with a solid plan, Hilda pointed out. I can just freeze the water with but some of the villains might at least be strong enough to break free, Izuku noted before turning to Tsuyu. Tsu, what other applicabilities of your quirk do you have? I can throw up my stomach and store things in it, Tsuyu explained. And I can secrete a toxic mucus that can cause paralysis or sting an enemy's eyes. I can even change my skin pigmentation or body heat for stealth if necessary. And how about you, Minta? Hilda asked. I can regrow the balls on my head at a rapid rate. And they can stick to pretty much anything, Minoru said as he plucked off one of his hairballs and stuck it to the wall of the boat. With enough of them, I can keep an enemy pinned to another object. Their stickiness can last for a whole day. And I don't stick to them, bouncing off them instead. Of course, if I use too many at a time, I start to bleed from my scalp. Izuku nodded. I think I know how we can take these guys down. Hope you know how to follow on command. One of the villains used his quirk to create a giant hand made of water to slice the boat in half, having grown tired of waiting. However, a massive burst of bright purple smoke stopped him as it began pouring out, clouding everyone's view. What the hell? Does one of them have a smoke manipulation quirk? Cannonball. Hilda suddenly dived into the water, making a massive splash before suddenly racing through the water faster than a speeding torpedo. The shark villain from earlier gasped in horror when he realized what was going on. Oh crap, that fat bitch is trying to make a whirlpool. With the villains panicked and distracted, Tsuyu took advantage and leaped off the boat with Minoru riding on her back and screaming bloody murder as he threw several hairballs. As the hairballs landed in the water, Tsuyu stuck the villains to each other by grabbing and dragging them with her tongue. Izuku then used to fire a concentrated beam of ice, freezing a line of the water and making an ice platform rise out with Hilda standing on it as she leaped off and then made a finger flick motion. PAOKIA smash. The surge of wind created a vacuum, sending the villains up a waterspout which was quickly getting filled with more sticky hairballs. Hilda and Izuku both then used the Rokushiki technique Jeppo to kick off the air and join Tsuyu and Minoru in escaping the shipwreck zone. If a strong force pushes away the water's surface, then that water will come rushing back, right into the middle, Izuku noted. The waterspout came down into a second whirlpool, causing all the villains in the water to be stuck to each other. Midoriya ... Yasakaya. You guys were so cool, Minoru said, tears of awe welling up in his eyes even as a trickle of blood ran down the side of his head. Yeah, you guys are pretty amazing. All of you, to be honest, Tsuyu said. Meanwhile, back at the center of the plaza, Tamura continued to watch as the bulk of his villain allies were beaten around by the combined efforts of Aizawa, Tsunade, and Captain Falcon. At this rate, All Might won't even need to show up. Looks like I'll have to step in,